Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another Supercoach Insider podcast. My name is Swizz here with the Round Zero Countdown Show. We're live. It is footy season finally. There's a lot happening. I have released a lot of podcasts over the last few days. It's been pretty hectic. Well, the boys are dealing with the cyclone up there in Queensland. Thought, what better opportunity to take the lead again and jump on and chat some Supercoach with you guys. We might have a couple of people pop up on the show. We'll see how that goes. But before I jump into that, as always, check us out on all our social media platforms, including YouTube, Spotify. Spotify, we have been putting up a lot of stuff recently. We did have a few problems a couple of weeks ago. Well, that was more a me thing, but most of that stuff is going up there. So for those people who can't watch the YouTube videos, they are on Spotify. And as always, get in touch with us via X, Supercoach Insider 100 or Swizz26 for me directly. All right, so do have teams to talk about. There's quite a few things to talk about today, so we will cover all that. Throw your questions in, guys. It'd be awesome. The more questions you send, the more I can answer, because there is a lot going on. People trying to organise their teams. We are 1 week away. I like to try to do that tonight because it's the issue always for me the Thursday night of the start of the season is I will be at the Richmond Carlton game. So obviously I've got my Richmond top on, so I do struggle next week. I'll be trying to get on at some point for a live show to help you guys as we lead up. But yeah, the teams on a Thursday night, I might leave that to my buddy up there. And we've got Chris, good work, mate, Stylus. That looks like your other half there in your in the picture, mate, looking sharp. Both of you looking sharp as always. All right, so we'll start off. We'll cover the teams and we'll talk about some of the other things that have been happening in the footy because that's the most relevant thing straight off. So the Sydney Swans and the Hawks, we know, are playing tomorrow night. The GWS and Collingwood game is on Sunday. A few people have actually messaged me just before and going, hang on, why is it an extended squad? Not too sure about that. There is a reason for that, and that is because it's a Sunday game. With the Saturday night opening up, they probably could have maybe made a last move there, but yeah, they obviously decided not to. But we are Sunday, so extended squad, and we'll talk a little bit more about that game anyway as we go through them. So Sydney Hawthorn, there is a couple of debutants for that match, especially in regards to playing the first game for Sydney. So we'll start off looking at the back line here. Blakey, Melican, Wicks. A few people have been looking at Sam Wicks, so he's lodged in that half back line, that back pocket. We know Cunningham is out injured at the moment, so he will come in at some point. So there, he will. Chris is saying something there. Yeah, or automatically take his spot. So just be very mindful of that if you are going down the Wicks road. It's the same with a couple of these other players we'll talk about. But for now, he's got an opportunity to fight for somebody who's on the half back line who I've been very hot on, and that is Ben Patton, who will be making his debut for Sydney, coming across from St Kilda. He's played the 71 games, 187 centimetre backman, 26 years of old. He's looked pretty good in pre-season. The great thing for us, he's a defender forward. Not trying to talk too much about my team because I have put out my team video today, but Ben Patton does feature somewhere in there at the moment. I've been pretty hot on him all pre-season, so definitely one if you want to kind of move him around. You can have him in the flex, forward line, defence. But then, of course, that all depends on how he goes. If he has an absolute stinker, gets subbed off, who knows, then, he's an easy downgrade option because he's 133K. If he goes really well, then, you can see hopefully he's going to get a good long-term at it to make us some cash and give us some flexibility. Even with the Swans having that early buy, it doesn't really matter. I think he's a great option. Also on the back line is Rampy and Matty Roberts. We saw what Matty Roberts did in the preseason game the other day, a favourite of Dean Cox. So, I expect him to have another really good season. And I have been seeing his ownership climb. Again, it's that issue of would you prefer, say, a Jaden Short, which a few people are going with, instead of a Matt Roberts because obviously Roberts has that early buy, but I think Roberts is the better player than, say, Short, and that's me wearing a Richmond top there. So I would much prefer him. He's not going to probably get as many of the kick-outs as, say, a Blakey would, but I think he'll be a great link-up player. So I feel like Blakey will look for Roberts. They're also if the centre-half back takes a mark, they'll be trying to get to Roberts to distribute out of the half-back line. Lloyd Heaney's going really undersold this year. I wouldn't be surprised if he's up there in those sort of top 3-4 players to start the season. It's just that early buy, and I think because he burnt people on the kind of the run home those last few weeks. But yeah, he's definitely a great option. McInerney, Braden Campbell, who's actually looked really good at half forward. I think that's been a good move. Tommy McCartan, the jury will be out there. A few Swan supporters that I know aren't too happy with that move, but we will see. Then Papley, Haywood, Amati, and Jordan, Grundy, Warner, and Rowbottom, and the interchange Florent, Adams, Sheldrick, Warner, and the new guy, which is Tom Hanley. 197 centimeters, 19 years of age, never played a game before. You'd think most likely would be the sub option, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that one. You wouldn't think it would be Sheldrick. And then the emergencies, Laddams, obviously the spare ruck. They've got Caleb Mitchell in there, a 20-year-old. He's played 2 games, 186 centimeters. And the last emergencies, Aaron Francis. So a couple of people looking at him. I feel like they need an injury to go down before he becomes relevant. So that's from a Swans point of view. The big one is their Bice is not around the side. He did take a few kick-ins in the other day for the Swans. So, yeah, it will be you can kind of rule him out for our sides for now, unless I guess somebody really does poorly and then he makes his way in. But I feel like he may become now a downgrade option, the mature age back pocket. So that is what's happening from a Sydney point of view. The Hawks, interesting Will Day named in the forward pocket. We'll wait and see how that sort of formulates throughout the game. Chol, Ginnivan, Watson, Morrison, and then Nash. D'Ambrosio on that wing, very good player. Newcomb and Sicily, there's the big one, named on the wing at the moment. And the worry is, when we get to the interchange bench, we'll kind of see why Sicily is further up the ground. I still think there's a chance he goes up and plays on the forward line. It does make him a really tough pick now because we kind of don't know exactly where he's going to play on any given week. So then Battle, Impey, Weddle, Scrimshaw, Hardwick, and Barrass. Obviously, Barrass and Battle crossing over the summer. Lloyd Meek, Warple, and Dylan Moore is actually named in the guts. So maybe there's a little bit thing with Day, but that could be an interesting one. Imagine if Dylan Moore played bulk CBA's first week and just absolutely killed it. There, just to really give some food for thought for a forward. Thanks, Scotty. I'll get to some questions soon, guys. Feel free to put them in. We've got McGuinness, McDonald, and here's the big one, Frost. So Sam Frost is in that side. You wouldn't expect him to be named sub. So the fact that Frost is in the team, it does kind of make some questions about what Sicily's role is going to go forward. Chris, I know you've been pretty big on Blake Hardwick Sicily all season playing back, mate, until we see it, mate, and we can only go off the teams at the moment. But the fact that they've named Hardwick at pack and then Sicily at forward, I actually think that's probably the more logical thing. But, mate, the problem is Barrass, Battle, and now Frost up forward. So, it does lead. They are quite small up the forward line. They need an option up there. It looks like they're trying to, throw sort of Connor Nash, who's that bigger body midfield, to kind of play that role. Obviously, they got Chol. So, yeah, it'd be kind of interesting to see how they set that up. Thank you, Chrissy. Great that we have round 0. Exactly, mate. Hawthorn's a great one for a couple of these reasons, because I know Will Day's popular. Obviously, Sicily's been a popular one. So they're actually fitted in quite well. Where other teams, I think we're a little bit more clearer on their lineup, where the Hawks, we do have some questions. So Mackenzie and Amon. Mackenzie could be an interesting one because I know a lot of people have been hot on him in draft. And then the emergencies, Gunston, so not making the side this time, Ward. Be kind of interesting to see what happens with Josh Ward this year. How many sort of games he plays, where he fits in. And then William McCabe, who's the 197-centimeter defender who hasn't played before. So, again, they've got that tall player. The fact that he might be even close too shows that Sicily's days, Chris, might be really numbered up in that back line. Okay, Scotty, hope you're well, mate. Thanks for joining the stream today. So that is what we've got from the first game. The second game is, as I said, on Sunday. 320 games, so just be mindful of that. Extended squad for now, so until it doesn't really matter, the extended squad this week, which is great because obviously, it's not affecting our teams like it normally would. So, the couple of people who were actually messaging me about that don't need to stress. It's not like we're setting our teams in this week. So backline, Iden, Taylor, Himmelberg, Whitfield at his normal halfback, Buckley and Ash. We've got Kelly, Ward, and Halloran. Ward's going to get a bit of early gameplay. If you're still in drafts and he's still there, go and pick up Ward because he's going to get some opportunities there at the moment. Bedford named at halfback. Interesting that Bedford is named against Josh Dacos. So we were thinking maybe the Nick Dacos tag, that's probably the most likely thing. But the fact that he's there, could that be a sneaky? Because we know Josh Dacos obviously racks up the ball. Wouldn't that be a bit of a side play? Chris, I'd love your thoughts, mate, on that to see if he is going to line up against Josh. Toby Green, Brett Daniels, who was fantastic last year. They've got Darcy Jones in the forward line with Cadman and Lockie Keefe. It does seem like quite a small forward line now because they are missing Jesse Hogan. So it's a lot on Cadman. Briggs, Cornelio, Callaghan. Be interesting to see how Cornelio goes because I thought he was cooked the other day. So I feel like that's a real place. He's where the Pies could potentially take advantage. I'll get to some of the other questions too. 100% Dacos is getting tagged. Chris, you're not wrong. It is a Dacos. It just depends which Dacos. And we'll go up here. Brunswick, thank you so much. Appreciate it, mate. Throw some questions in there, Brunswick. Hit me up, mate. If you need help with your team, I really appreciate that, mate. Any support you give, mate, absolute superstar. And then the extended bench. So Angrove, who probably out of this group, I probably think will be sub. But there's another guy that could be because he just fits the sub mold. I actually talked about this at length on my podcast, my team podcast. Max Growinski, I've absolutely butchered that. Connor Stone. We've got Hannaford. Then there's Leeka Leah, James Leake, Callum Brown, and who would probably come in and he might have to be required because they need the extra tall forward, and Jacob Weir. So probably the big one there is James Leake on that extended bench. He is the perfect sub. Now, he did play the 19 CBAs, which was the most CBAs for the Giants the other day. We are really hoping he gets a good crack because he's the perfect defender for us. Potentially a great D6 outside his bye round, but that won't matter because we're obviously best 18. But we're hoping he gets a decent crack at it. But just because of his size, 188 centimeters, can play mid, can play halfback, it is a real worry about where he fits into this team. And even as sub, hopefully it's early injuries and he comes on, he can still make a great impact. And at that price, fine. But, we know sometimes the subs don't get on until really late, and that would be really damaging for us going forward. I will answer the questions from other teams at the moment, guys. If you've got teams about your questions, throw them in there. I will be covering them very soon. Forward line for the Pies, Schultz, Will Hosky and Elliott, and McStay, McCreary, Myercheck, and Brad Hill. We've got Lipinski, Pendles, and Perryman named on a wing. Actually not named in the guts. That'll be an interesting one, Chris. I'm sure Perryman will play some time, definitely in that midfield. But if he doesn't and he just gets stuck on the wing, maybe we'll have to reassess that, but you'd expect him to play plenty of midfield time. Dacos at halfback. He's going to be an interesting one to watch, guys. We're just going to say it now. I'm pretty sure Chris has mentioned this in my some times that Josh Dacos as a potential DPP by round 6 if he's coming off that halfback and gets that 35%. That would be an awesome one for him. As a midfielder, he's not that relevant, but geez, if he got defender status, and we know how much he loves the wax with his brother. So, one to watch out, one to kind of plan for around that sort of Anzac Day period. We might need to get Josh Dacos into our teams. Howe, Quainer, Reef McGinnis, Moore, and Maynard. Then we've got Darcy Cameron, Chris, and of course Nick Dacos in the guts. Markov, side bottom, Jamie Elliott, Membry, Ed Allen, Long, Parker, and Frampton make up the extended bench. So Sidey could be a potential there as a sub, but Jamie Elliott will play, Membry will play. I think you'd probably say Parker and Frampton won't, and probably Long. So maybe it's an Ed Allen as a sub candidate. Maybe the Sidey starts and Ed Allen comes on. Probably the way they'll go, because I'd expect probably Markov, Elliott, and Membry to play. That is the team. And then, yeah, there's Chris saying Ellen sub there. Yeah. I was just thinking maybe they go the experienced player, but most likely to be the young player that comes on and makes an impact there. And also Chris saying, my feeling is that they will rotate Pendles and Perryman. And that becomes a bit of a problem, but at least, again, Collingwood, not a bad team that we have for round 0. Just to answer that Perryman question, there's probably the annoyance is the team that I had the most questions about was Geelong. I really wanted to see them in action, but obviously the hurricane up there, the cyclone, I should say, is it's put a stop to that, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But they are the teams for this week. 2 games of footy, so yeah, quite different there. That opening round, New South Wales, well, good for Sydney, but not really good for the rest of us. Okay, we'll go through some of these questions, and then I'll talk a little bit about what is happening in regards to footy and what I think will happen about these bye rounds. So, again, thank you, Brunswick. Really do appreciate that, mate. Hope you have a great year ahead. All right. What's Chris saying? Hewitt out, Treloar back early. Forced my hand to go Libba to Sicily and Hewitt to Berry. Yeah, I'd like I did talk about the other day, Libba could be an interesting one, but the fact that Treloar is back, it just doesn't make as much sense as if Treloar and Bont were missing. Libba could have been a really good smoky to start off, especially if Treloar was going to sort of miss back, by 6-7 weeks as first expected. But yeah, doesn't seem to be as bad out. Hewitt, the only good thing about that could be a downgrade option as we go forward. We do need players to come in throughout the season and, hopefully get a good run at it. We know there's going to be injuries. Hewitt's probably hopefully close enough that, if a bit of waffle form and then gets that opportunity when we need him around that sort of round 6, round 7 period. So I don't think that's the world's worst thing. And especially the great thing about Hewitt, he is dual position. So, I know we've got the flex to play around with stuff, but nothing better than the fact that he could come in and downgrade either a midfielder or a forward for us when we need it. All right. Matt, not related to the teams this week. Yeah, we don't care about that. Obviously it's round 0, so we're all trying to get our teams ready anyway. So ask all the questions away, guys. How does Baker go at West Coast? Seems like a great role in the West Coast backline. I thought as a Richmond fan, you might have good insight. Okay, so Liam Baker I've been saying to the West Coast supporters out there, they're going to absolutely love him. And we saw late in that game against North Melbourne, took the game on, picked the ball up and bang, massive goal, got them over the line. And that's the sort of stuff that Liam Baker does, puts his body on when it needs to be put on, doesn't shirk a contest for a guy of his size too. Like, it's not like there's a lot of him. And yeah, he's got a lot of courage. I expect him to play quite a bit of halfback, and maybe it's kind of that role where it could be a little Dan Houston, like maybe 40 meters off the ball, but like that when that quick kick came out, and he was sort of standing, that 40 meters off the play came out to him, and he attacked the footy. So I think if he is in that permanent halfback role, it'd be a really good one for him. Uses the ball pretty well. He has no problem finding the ball. The problem obviously at Richmond was too many sort of cooks in the kitchen. They'd never settled him into a position. He was Mr. Fix-It and just couldn't ever get settled. So I hope West Coast do settle him down, I would gather, because of obviously McQualter coming in, he wants, the Richmond leaders there to help teach the game plan. So they're probably thinking the captain's already up in the forward line. So Oscar Allen, he'll buy in what's going on. So he's the leader there. Jack Graham comes into that midfield and plays guts to help out, Harley Reid. They're trying to put players around Harley Reid, to get the best out of him, but also, they want him to stay long term too. So I expect Jack Graham to go in there and teach and help that game plan. He'll be that sort of ball. He might not be the best super coach scorer. He'll do enough, but not from a classic point of view, not a bad little draft pickup because he's still listed as a forward and he'll play in there. Where Liam Baker, then he becomes the leader down back. They've obviously lost Barras. McGovern, as good as he is aging, and Baker obviously knows the Richmond game plan that McWalter will be trying to move in. And it did seem like they were taking the game on, fast ball movement from there. So what is his actual sort of like top line? The hard thing there for Bakes, it's, if he was just listed as a defender, I would think he'd get nowhere near where he needed to be to match those defenders because I don't think he's a 105 guy. The great thing is he is a forward. So does he have the capacity to go at least 90 in this role? Yes, for sure. I don't think he's going to stretch the budgets that much that we need to like start him. And because we obviously have all these great forward value options early on anyway, so why do we need kind of stretch there? But it's throughout the season at some point. It wouldn't surprise me that Liam Baker we might target for our teams to go, yep, we want to finish up our forward lines. We want a guy who can potentially be like an F6 for us, and the fact that he's got that loophole around the midfield. So yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. And it's not one we need to start, but just continue to monitor. So I hope that answers that question in depth. All right, to Michael, thanks for jumping on, mate. If you could only pick one, Neil or Sarong. I've actually been asked this a few times today, but it was actually Neil and Brayshaw, which is a way easier answer than Neil and Sarong. But yes, Neil or Sarong, as both have good early fixtures. And how much weight do you put in the 600k players? As I think Bont has been there, been the only one to stay above 600k in recent times. This one's a hard deciding between it because all you guys, your fans, you've been probably watching multiple times my show this preseason and know how hot I am on Caleb Sarong. So nothing's really changed regarding that recently. The guy I think can take his game to the next level, can be a 120 guy this year. I've talked about the fact that his average at Optus Stadium and in wins is over 120 last season. And now North Melbourne have gifted them an extra home game and most likely another win. Nothing against North and North supporters here, but it's going to be a hard slog. You might potentially win the West Coast game that you've sold off, but the Freo game, that's going to be tough. So you've pretty well handed Freo an extra win at home, which means Caleb Sarong a game away, which he sort of tracks as 100 guy away. That's another potential possibility for him to go, 120 plus. And if he's getting 13 home games, which you think Freo are going to win the majority of them, that's going to put him on a good stead, and that's where I think he can lift that average. The difference was last year, Brayshaw was probably better on some of those away games. You look at some of Brayshaw's larger scores. I think it was against the D's away, Sydney away. So where Sarong, there's definitely a correlation with him playing at home and in wins. So I love his fixture. The only other player out there who I like a fixture better and the draw better is Lachie Neale. So I hope that answers you straight off there, Michael. So if I'm lining them up in the schoolyard, I've only got to pick one, and Caleb Sarong's my absolute love child this year, I'm still taking Lachie. The first game, Sydney, who cares? Like he obviously played well against them in the grand final, had one downgrade game against them, which was actually the up at the Gabba last year, it was 78 points. But in the previous years, he has scored some massive points against the Swans. He's got a 144 and a 187. Then comes into round two, West Coast. His previous recent form against the Eagles is 143, 142, and 123. And then his recent form against the Tigers, which is now round four, but there's a game in between that, so we'll talk about that in a second. But Richmond is 162, 143, and 110. And Richmond are arguably worse than they've ever been in that period. So all of a sudden, you've got a couple of games there where he should dominate. Then now we have the Geelong game. So for those who don't know, Geelong, as expected, round three, Brisbane and Geelong will play there. That'll be on the Saturday. So Geelong, as good of a team and successful as they are, their midfield is probably their weakness. They sort of get away with it because of the other experienced players and how probably well-rounded they are. But, Dangerfield's obviously aging. You got guys like Tom Atkins in there, who is Bose, for example. Young Nevitt's going to get a run. And then you've got obviously Holmes is still a young player. Bailey Smith, depending on where he plays, if it's more outside or inside. But he's still coming back from an ACL and he's quite young. So compared to the bigger bodies of Brisbane, Neale, McCluggage, even Will Ashcroft's a little tank who will come in and dominate already. Dunkley, Jared Berry. They're just a seasoned team. And the great thing about sort of players like Dunkley and Berry can give protection to guys like Neale, Ashcroft and McCluggage, and they do it so well. So a very professional team. So I don't think that troubles them, especially at home. The Lions obviously play really well at home. And then after that, the Bulldogs, who are going to be without Bont for that game. Trelaw comes back, but still, the guys arguably the best, if not in the top sort of 5 players in the league. I'm not actually too sure where Kane Corns had him on the list the other day, but no matter where, actually, I do have the list here. No, he had him at 2. So, yeah, that's fine because Nick Dacos is an absolute champion, but Bont at 2, yeah, fine, because the guy's a superstar. You take the best player out of every team. So I think people sometimes forget about this. They go, oh, yeah, it's one player, whatever. But you take Nick Dacos out of Collingwood. I think GWS are going to struggle this game because Tom Green's not there. He's arguably their best player. And then they obviously lost their full forward as well in Hogan, which just hurts. So you go through Essendon. Imagine Essendon without Zach Merritt playing a few games. So that's what the Bulldogs are going to be facing. So again, that's a good matchup for the Lions, and that's also on neutral territory. The Pies, it's really up to Dacos. Perryman's going to add a lot to that, but I think that's the Collingwoods, again, they're like Geelong. Their strength is all around the ground. They got great players. They got the captain down back. They got Josh Dacos giving great penetration from the half back flank. They got some different avenues to kick goals, but they're probably their actual midfield's probably their weak point. So again, Neil, they're not going to worry. St Kilda, Gold Coast, North Melbourne, Melbourne at home. It's just such a great draw. So yes, if you're choosing one, it is Lachie Neale. Before he missed the bye, I probably was actually on Sarong, but now he's got those games. It's got to be him. What is that? They could have played tonight, but the Gold Coast game would have been cooked. Yeah, that's probably the thing, because that weather's been delayed. So Chris, our weather reporter on the ground up in Brisbane, mate. So he said cyclone time has been pushed back to Saturday morning. Hope you're doing well. Hope you've got the sandbags going. You've got all the supplies you need, mate. But yeah, that is the word. So they probably could have got in. I think the issue would have been also, even if it was pushed back and they knew about that, the worry is, could have they potentially got both teams out come tomorrow, especially get Geelong back into Melbourne. So there would have been some concerns there, because it's quite a big risk, because we know these things will turn to that at any given point. So I don't mind. I think it's easier. I think most people are pretty happy that the round 0's gone, but obviously annoying from the Queensland point of view. But they'll get their moment soon. So that'll be still a big game in round 3. Probably not as much as opening the season, but it'll still be great. What else have you said here, Chris? Only trouble with Baker is no kick. And no kick-ins. And McGovern had 9. Yeah. So obviously, your player getting kick-ins, it's free. It's a free position for them. The only side step to that is, as long as that McGovern kick is going to Baker the majority of the time, great. Now, it doesn't happen all the time, but yeah, if they're kicking to them and then maybe Baker's getting a 1-2, or he's the one further up the ground who's getting involved in more attacking plays. Now, West Coast, how many attacking plays might they have? Who knows? But I still don't mind that. But yeah, McGovern, obviously, the 9. McGovern's a real smoky. Again, no one's going to pick him. If you want a real pod who's going to start well, he might be one. Another question, Michael, thoughts on Flynn at R2 rather than the flex? Allows you to use bulk cash elsewhere and allows you to use the flex to pick up another premium rookie that we wouldn't pick in our midfield. Yeah, so I've had a few people message me today, got on the DMs and said, Swizz, Flynn, I really want to put him in. They may or may have not seen if I've got him in my team at the moment. Check that out. But he's I don't really want him in the flex because there's so many premium midfielders that we've got at the moment. So just a few, obviously Nod, Sardis, Sheldrick, Nevitt, Ashcroft. I'd be moving off, say, Draper, but there's quite a few there. So people are like, I can't fit all these guys in. I want one in the flex position. Makes sense. But that flex position is taken up by Flynn and probably does leave you with not as much options to rotate and use the flex efficiently early. It's great if you get an injury to one of your players, one of your ruckmen, so you got covering 2. But let's just hypothetically say Ashcroft, who is in my flex position at the moment, so I can kind of move him, especially if I've got a dual position player sitting in my midfield. And that may end up happening leading in the season. That may not. But if I do, I can swap him with that dual position player and then maybe swap that dual. So let's just say it's I've got Bo Allen, for example, sitting in my midfield midfield for whatever reason. I swap Bo with Ashcroft, then I go swap Bo with any one of my defenders. And you've got that flexibility to play around with things. Where Flynn, you can only move him to one spot. So that does make it difficult. The R2, the hard thing is, and I did somebody messaged me today, it's like, how much sleep will I get at night by having Flynn at R2? And I'm like, it is a worry. The great thing is those early buys because it's best 18. So at least you can cover. If he goes well, great, you're fine because as you said, you can put cash elsewhere. It also depends where you're putting that cash. If that's going to help you, because I feel like these defenders are an issue. I'm 5 deep at the moment. Maybe you need 6 deep. If let's just say no rookies were available, then I'm more tempted. But if because of the value in the rookies we have in the forward line, if it's really just trying to get you up to maybe let's just say it's another premium Rankin or Dylan Moore, whoever you're putting in there as that premium F2, I would rather just go, I'll take the Ruck and maybe even bypass some Flynn. It just kind of depends on how much cash you've got left over and what's your other option to use that cash. So I'm not a huge fan of the Flynn R2, but I'm not advocating against it either. So I think it comes down to, as I said, defender rookies. If we don't get many defender rookies and we need the other defensive premium, but in saying that as well, flex position, we've got early buys. You could just make D6 a dead spot. Like you just really shove any rookie in there if you really wanted to, knowing that your flex is going to cover it, knowing that your best 18 is going to cover it. And really it doesn't become an issue until we get to round 5 anyway. And then by then we're trying to upgrade players or it's just a case that maybe it's 2 weeks that the flex covers that D5 on that D6 on field. And if they're only scoring 20s and 30s, who cares? Your flex is covering it. So it's not the worst idea. The worry then, what happens if West Coast change things up too? And that's where a couple of people would like, especially this one person's like the sleepless nights thing, because if Williams comes in, if they change things up. So I feel like this is one of those moves which is going to really define early rankings. Because if you go Flynn and it doesn't work out, and I think at last look there was 24%, and let's see if it's changed even higher now. But there was 24% of people on Flynn. Still at 24%. So those 24%, pick him. It works out. You're probably ahead of the game because you've got a guy who's not only making cash, but he is obviously scoring points on field. There's a part of me that thinks I would think it's the safer move, maybe just to trade into him. So waiting to see which player just doesn't pop off, especially the fact that so many people are going a lot of these top premium rookies. So maybe even save some cash if you can. Or is there a way that you can sort of get it? Like maybe it's like you forfeit like an O'Driscoll type, and or whoever that premium midfielder's in. Again, like it might be a way that you can sort of play around there, but I don't mind the idea of just sort of seeing Flynn and seeing how it sets up at West Coast. He's got some tough matchups early. We haven't really seen the consistency from him, so there is plenty of questions about it. It's not a bad draw. It could be worse, but which is obviously a season ruckman, big O, round 3. We're not expecting Darcy to be there, and then he's got young Briggs. So it's not too bad from an early point of view. You don't really want him too long term because round 7 he hits Meek, round 8 it's gone, round 9 Nank, and round 10 it's Marshall. So it gets really brutal in that stage. So the question is, in those first sort of 6 weeks, can he make enough cash to? We really want 100, 110K, so he's going to have to go over 80 in that period. Can he go that to really make him viable too? So there are some questions there as well. I don't really like cheese. You know how much I love your name, mate. How am I going? I'm actually going awesome. Absolutely awesome. Things are going well. Got some good news from some issues that I've been dealing with from a legal point of view. So absolutely flying. Big J, how are you, mate? Feel free to jump on, buddy. I always jump on yours. You can jump on mine, mate. I'm sure. I don't know if I sent you the link. Pretty sure I did. But anyway, G-Bags, let's get into you, mate. Thank you so much, first off. Awesome. I really do appreciate that. All the support, guys. It really does help us run this pod and do it. We do it for the love for you guys. I've always said I don't care if there's one person in there, 1,000 people. It's all good. It's about communicating with you guys and talking Supercoach, talking footy. It's awesome. So, hey, mate, thoughts on Noah Anderson? I reckon he has a great early run, but the round 2 bye is a concern, tossing up between him and Dawson. Okay, tossing up there's the two parts to this. So the Dawson pick I don't like. I think there's too many cooks in the kitchen. If the Crows get an injury, he's the captain. He's going to have to go fill that role. And his disposal efficiency, and Chris and I were talking about this at length the other day. Geez, it's dropped off. Now there was injury concerns last year because of this, but the real problem is he's got over the injury and he's still kicking poorly. So yeah, no, it's a real concern. And I sort of don't. I just don't feel like I've got the confidence that he's going to like really pick up and get to that sort of 600k, 650k premium, and really do something well for our team. So yeah, I'm not on it at all. So if you're choosing between the two, straight off, it's Noah Anderson for me. That's a no-brainer. And there's a couple other guys that's like the cheaper guy and say Rosie that I prefer just because of the early draw. So between the two, Anderson, without even talking about the buy and the fixture and everything that is happening with that. The next part of it for me is Noah Anderson in the draw. So let's quickly just cover the Gold Coast section of things. And we know now that their game is unfortunately being moved to round 24. So there was some talk. I was suggesting, and I was still big on this. I know some Essendon supporters aren't happy with my suggestion, but moving Essendon and Geelong to round 16, it would have meant Essendon and Gold Coast have the bye together. They play round 14. Essendon and Gold Coast technically don't have a bye, but to manufacture that, their round 17 fixture and round 18 fixtures at the moment are obviously not set. So then you play either Gold Coast or Essendon either on a Wednesday or a Thursday night. Give them a 6-day break from the previous round into there. And then they don't play until the following Sunday or Monday, and then they still get a 9 or a 10-day break. And St Kilda at the moment have a 10-day break anyway for their bye. So I think a couple of teams might be 10 or 11 days as it is. So they probably lose one day, like big deal. And then the next week, so if Essendon say then play the Monday night, the following week they play Sunday, okay, it's a 6-day break. But then you could maybe have a couple of 6-day breaks and then give them another extended break. So there was ways around that they could have manipulated the fixtures since it's not locked in. I thought that was the better move. I'm glad they just didn't put it on the free bye weekend because what if I think Essendon and Gold Coast make finals? So they are doing it round 24. AFL Fantasy have come out, Supercoach haven't, but AFL Fantasy have come out and said that game will not count for their scores, which is awful for us Supercoaches because what AFL Fantasy usually do, Supercoach usually try to do the exact same thing. So all of a sudden we have this situation where Noah Anderson and your Merritts and all those players are just back like they had with their with this situation where they've got one less game. So it's frustrating. We're hoping that they sort of got in par with Brisbane and Geelong. Nothing we can do about that. And the hard thing for Anderson, his form has always been so good at home. We're hoping because he's captain now that boosts. And if it boosts, well, great, we're on a winner here. But if it doesn't boost, it doesn't boost as high as what we kind of need it to. So at the moment, he's he's like kind of going 120 at home games, and some of those away games were, maybe 80s ish, and then it kind of balances out. So we need to really pick up those games of 50s. And if he starts scoring, if they become 80s and his 80s become 90s, all of a sudden he's a great pick. So I still like him. The problem is again the round 2 bye. Is there a chance that we can bring him in afterwards? But as you said, the early fixture was just so good. So if you're fighting between those two, it is Anderson. But is there somebody else that you can go, aka like a Rosie, save money, and then you don't have to worry about the buy anyway? So yes, the draw, West Coast, I don't really rate the Ds that much this year, and did score 189 only a year, just over a year ago in 2023. Adelaide, North Melbourne, Richmond. The Richmond game could be a great, obviously, vice captain option for us as well. Where I've been saying you want to try to get players who are playing Richmond. So, like the pick, potentially better options, but that you can probably look at your team. But I'm not talking anyone else out of picking Noah Anderson. Excellent. Okay. Who we got here? James, Josh Sin. I didn't watch the Port Amy game, so I'm not sure of his role, but he scored 67 Supercoach from 40% game time. Number 12 draft pick and 22 years old. Thought on him, role, injury risk. When Supercoach first opened, I was really big on Sin. But I was talking to some other Port Adelaide supporters, and they were really off him. They were just like, yeah, he's, kicking issue issues. We think that's going to be sort of half back by committee. They've got Bergman, Evans. Obviously, they moved Finlayson down there as the tall. You got Burgoyne, who's playing midfield, but can obviously push back into that back line as well. They have plenty of options, and that's not even talking about Farrell, who's the main one. So Sin, definitely is a problem. The other part to it is I think he did pick up a bit of an injury in that game too, so that was probably why he got the 40% game time. Hopefully it's nothing major. I don't think I've heard it's being anything major. So that is a little bit of a problem. So I'm completely off him at the moment. Like, the guy he's shown the ability. I think he'll show the ability in that role that he can score, but as you said, there's so many question marks there, and my now thought is there's so many other Port Adelaide players that are going to probably share the points. It's a little bit for me like the Flynn situation, but I think even though he's cheaper, he's actually bigger risk. So I personally would just stay away from him. And if he really pops off, and that's going to be hard to do because round one they are playing the Pies. I think they set up quite well up in their forward line. Round two could definitely get some scores, but I don't think their halfbacks are going to see a lot of ball against Richmond. So maybe we just sit back, wait, and just kind of see what happens with a Josh Sin. Colin, it was, are rolling lockouts still the goal? Yes. Or does the lockout begin? No. So it is the rolling lockout. So I hope that's an easy one to answer. So come Thursday night, you don't have to have your team locked in. You just have to have Richmond and Richmond and Carlton locked in. Forgot who we were playing there for a second. And then goes again onto Friday night, Hawthorn and Essendon players locked in. So we just roll it out in that round one, and we can obviously move players around depending on, in particular, the big ones is on the Sunday. So extended squads on Sunday will be Adelaide. I guess if people are looking at Draper, Peatling, you don't expect would be on an extended squad. St Kilda's the awful one there because we kind of want to get our head around our midfield. And then we're talking maybe players like Boxshell. Hasty is another one. And there's O'Connell in the back line. So the Saints really annoying. St Kilda would have not been a bad one for us for round 0 because we could have seen how these rookies fitted in. So that's a bit frustrating. Melbourne Giants. The Giants couldn't be any worse for us on the Sunday. Again, at least we've got to have a look at them this week, but sort of see what their changes will be. Nothing worse than an extended squad next week, and we're waiting for the last moment to see if James Leake is part of that team and where he fits in. So that'll be frustrating. Melbourne, Xavier Lindsay and Langford, and then West Coast and the Sun. So at least Hewitt's not out now. Bo Allen comes into that mix, and for this, and I guess depending on their ruck situation, if they're going to play a second ruck, for that question before about Matt Flynn, and then the Suns, I don't think that's going to be too much of a concern for us. So a couple teams there, which is great. A couple teams are absolutely awful, the fact that they're playing on a Sunday, and as we try to lock our teams in for that first week. I currently have Flynn R2, but I have a premium ruck in flex. So, mate, that's the same thing. So that's fine because you are playing the 3 ruck. So, that's fine completely. All right, here we go. Mitchell, who are the viable D5s? Is there anything under 400K? Well, there is definitely one player in particular who's under 400K. I'm just actually writing an article just before I came on here, and the obvious one is from Geelong, and that is Sam De Koning. We've got to wait and see sort of how that plays out. The big issue is they do play Geelong early on, and they have said, they're going to come up with a plan for him, which that means it's probably going to be Reece Stanley. And a little bit of a match sim I think they did the other day, or a hit out. It was De Koning was taking the centre bounces, and I believe Stanley was taking the hit outs around the ground. So there's a big chance they play 2. It would have been just better for us if Stanley had retired, but unfortunately, it's a bit frustrating there. So if he was the sole ruck, definitely he would have been the option, but unfortunately, he probably doesn't look to be as good. But 361, he needs to be monitored. Joel Frazier is one that needs to definitely be watched. 370K. He was mentioned. I think he was mentioned by Bont. So all the captains, they asked them about their Supercoach players. Maybe a player that's going to actually go really well in a role, who's going to improve. A couple of them weren't actually couple of senior players. I think Essendon's was like Gresham. But Joel Frazier, I'm pretty sure that's the one that Bont went to. He's like, he's just ready to take his game to the next level. Him and Bailey Dell will be back there. You got to think he's probably playing that sort of Caleb Daniel type role, and no JJ there either to take the points off. His round 23 game last year was a 136 against North Melbourne. So we haven't saw it. The problem is we haven't seen that consistent scoring from him yet. Haven't got those opportunities because last year was his first year playing in the AFL. So, but here is a guy that, the fact that the captain and he would probably know best that he's one to watch. So definitely Joel Frazier watch. And I don't mind if you like, that's a real big ballsy move. 8% of teams are going in it at the moment. So there is some ownership, and he's nearly at the same ownership of DeConning. So it is a pod, but it's you're not completely alone there. Corey Wagner's no one's talking about except for the Fremantle captain. Fremantle captain, that was his pod, said him and Clark will be the ones moving that ball out of halfback. And Wagner the other day in the practice match, he absolutely had a field day. Now, we know halfbacks go really well in these games. 24 touches, and he had 11 marks, 116 Supercoach. So, again, that's even more ballsy of a move than Joel Frazier. But halfback in that role, he's going to get no attention. Maybe Clark, my boy Clark, gets a little bit more attention going forward. They want the Freo players to play more attacking off halfback. That's why Ryan's game has changed, and we saw that regression second half of last year. So just a little bit of a left field one that has been brought up by their captain. Is he going to be enough to make 100K? Probably, because we see this all the time. There's a whole lot of players in that 300 range each year who we're not thinking about, and they come out and make 100, 120, 130K. And, there's just no talk about them. And, that's all we want from the rookie guys as well. So, perfect world, 150K if somebody can make that. Does he have that in him? Probably not, but maybe if it's 120K and he's sort of putting up 80s every week, it's not the worst call. I'm not going to say Wayne Malira is in 3% of teams. I know he has some love out there. I know my good mate MJ loves him, and he was been talking about him early in the season. My issue is Malira with the injury history. I just could never do it myself. It just, I just no love for it at all. So the one I do like is Jacob Blight from Richmond, 246 defender. Obviously, Bolter is not there for the time being. Could be longer, depending on what happens with his court case. Blight, he has confidence to burn. Like, this guy really rates himself. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. The 12 possessions the other day, 11 of them was kicks, so he doesn't try to handle. He likes to kick the ball, which is always good from a Supercoach perspective. 7 marks, just the 68 Supercoach. Probably could be a little bit more, but that's the hard thing. It's going to be, especially, I think the issue there was Collingwood, how efficient they were. Well, like, what were they at one stage? I think it was 20 goals won. So he wasn't getting the chips that were just going, the short kicks around. He wasn't able to mark kick-ins, even take kick-ins, because we weren't getting the chance. The Richmond defenders were probably getting whiplash because just watching the ball go over their head as Collingwood were just kicking the goals. So teams, it could happen, but I don't think teams are going to go 20 goals won against us every week. And somebody like a Blight, he's going to get involved there with those little kickouts. Uze did come out and talked about, say, Jaden Short and the Richmond backline, controlling the game, short kicks. It's not really what I want to hear as a Richmond supporter. I'd rather them take on the game. I don't care if we lose by 200 points. Maybe not 200 points, but I don't really care as long as we're putting a game style in that's going to take us forward. And I feel like there is a little bit of this going to be, we're going to try to do what we can to control the ball, to just play safe football. It's got me a little bit worried to kind of watch that, because I don't know what the positive is, except from a Supercoach point of view. So if Blight might be, those 7 marks and those 12 kicks, all of a sudden, if we're getting more behinds and we're sort of controlling the ball, that could become a 15 to 20 possession game. That could become a 10-mark game. If he gets to, say, 80, well, he's definitely done his job. Like, break even at 46, even if he's going in the sort of the 70s, he's going to make cash. So at 246K, he is definitely one to watch. And the person who asked about Sim before, he's not that much to get up from Sim to Blight to Sim. So 229 versus 246. And the last one I'll talk about, this one, is the North Melbourne, and that's Griffin Logue. Griffin Logue played 2 games last year for a 78 and a 52. We know they got him across from Freo a couple of years ago. The year before, it probably wasn't, again, the best year for him. He did start off quite well. He had some 80s in there and 88, and then dropped off. There was a couple of injury-affected games, which obviously hurt his score. But at one stage, he was up around that 400K mark. But yeah, he's got the ability to sort of take those intercept marks and stuff. I don't like him as much as a couple of the other players in that range I've talked about before, but he has scored tons before. You go back to sort of 2022, he's got a 125, a 116. He's not having to play lockdown defender at North. You expect Comben will take that. The main guy, and Comben actually scored quite well, so he's kind of nearly cheap enough where you could potentially take a punt, but I much prefer Blight. But I have seen have a couple of people asking about Griffin Logue in that kind of role. What did he actually do against the Eagles? That's probably one I haven't investigated as much. So I don't know if he actually scored so well in that first game. He's still got a 76. So yeah, again, it's like Blight, 7 marks. 14 possessions. He likes to handball just a little bit more, which is probably why I like Blight as much. But Comben, Logue, they're all going to see plenty of ball down there at North Melbourne still. Like they'll improve, but how much will they improve? So these teams that are going to be down the bottom of the ladder, and that's why McGovern did so well. Like I'm not expecting Blight or Logue to be McGovern, but geez, it's not like they can't go 80 for a period of time. Hey, Richmond's Prime legend, thanks, mate. Feel free to ask a question about your team too, mate, but I do appreciate the love. Oh, you do have one. Excellent. Okay, well, actually, we'll go to you straight away. Thoughts on Finlayson? So I nearly feel like if he was a defender, he'd probably nearly suit my team more, but he is a forward playing in defence. The issue is how long are these injuries going to happen? So we don't know how long Radical is going to be out, so we can kind of remove him from the conversation. Again, BZT, they haven't really actually given a big confirmation, I think, of exactly how long he's missing. So he could get some good time down there and playing in that defensive capacity because they need him. They've lost Marshall, but it looks like the coach is going to be more that guy in the forward line. The 305K, I would have rather if he was actually a defender because the forwards we do have other value options in that area. But geez, he's got some good scores. Like his last 3 games against Collingwood, but this has been more playing up, sort of the other end or roaming through the ruck. But he does have 112, 132, and 113 as his last 3 games against the Pies. The hard thing is who's he going to have to take against Richmond if it's Lynch playing? Is he going to have to take the sort of number 1 guy? And there is a little bit of a worry about that. So I do get a little bit worried about maybe what is his consistency, but geez, this guy, we know he can go on a run. Like, only as a couple of years ago, he popped up a 125, 101, 103, 101, 141, and 101 pretty well in 6 games. So if he has a couple of big games, I feel like he's the sort of guy, again, I would rather trade into. I know then you kind of potentially miss the Richmond game, but there's no guarantees that he goes well in that. Yeah, if we did see if Richmond are kind of bombing, he might just take intercept marks all day. So it could be a good thing. Does the ball get down there that much that he even gets that opportunity? I would rather sort of see it. I'd rather the 2 games. And if he goes well in Richmond, cool. I'm like, great. Maybe people who are starting Garcia, maybe people who are starting a Flynn, it hasn't worked out. Maybe you can just do the side swap to Finlayson, and maybe then we've also got better knowledge about what's happening with Port Adelaide's defence by then. So from a starting pick, again, but if you've got the kahunas to do it, if that's the sort of pod, and I feel like you can have one of these pods. So again, I like Blight better for the cheaper price in the back line, but if you've got the cash there to go it, I'm not going to talk you out of it as long as I feel like this is your only sort of guy in that range. So if this is instead of Hugo Garcia, you're going Finlayson. I'm trying to think of a couple other players that we're looking at. Maybe it's Luke Parker, for example. Riley Sanders is a good one now that especially Treloar's back or whatever. If you're thinking, well, I don't want Sanders, I'm happy to run Finlayson and Sanders, and that's the only pod, and your team's pretty cookie cutter, and you want to kind of run there, you're not going to get too much. You're not going to get hurt too much by just that one person. Kev, how are you, mate? How was your cricket season? Yeah, so I played my 300th game for my club, Parkfield Cricket Club, this year. So thank you so much. Actually, I will say it on air because they need a huge thing. Fiery, Jamie in particular, in my team, and Endeavour Hills Cricket Club as well. I don't know if anybody who's on here plays or knows them, but they were awesome for me on the day. It was actually just a really great moment. Got clapped on, clapped off. There was a cake celebration. I wasn't expecting that. So, including juniors, it's like 400 games now, but 300 games for Parkfield. It was a great moment. So, from a team point of view, we finished fifth. Unfortunately, we lost the game early in the year to Beaconsfield. We probably should have not lost to. So, no disrespect to you guys, Beaconsfield. You're a great bunch led by a great captain, but lost to them. And unfortunately. So I move on to the winter season. So Kev, I know you pop down sometimes in our winter season. So hopefully we can catch up during there. We love your support. I do play in the winter with former Supercoach champion JP. So it's always my great chance to spend some time catching up with him. And we talk Supercoach. We talk so much Supercoach on field. It's I'm sure the other team probably gets sick of it, probably go out just because they're sick of hearing about it. Rookie coach Joseph Wiz, how are you? Thoughts on Stuart? My good mate Grimo messaged me about this today, and I think it was Abs as well. He has warmed to him. There was some talk about Stuart maybe playing some midfield time. My worry is how much. What is he splitting it? I would rather him just be in one role, and this is the problem because if they were playing this week, I was going to have a really close look at him, and I thought, here we go. If he's set in that midfield, and he had a really good average last year in the midfield for the games he played. I don't know if I've got the stat on me right now, but I was looking at it before. I think Grimo actually was talking to me about it, about what he can do with a certain amount of defensive time down there. So I'll see if I can do that as I'm scrolling through. I did actually get somebody was saying, I think Stuart was training at the back. So if he is going to be playing at the back, I'm not as thrilled with it because I think now with Humphreys, Lawson Humphreys coming through, they've got a few options. Max Holmes can kind of bounce between both. I think he might be just that solid 100 guy, and there's not as much value, and I want value. But his averages there. So apparently he's in 21, 22, and 23 averages all of 107 plus, including 113, when he had over 53% game time and CBA game time. So if he's getting midfield time, at least 53%, I would have been like, good, thumbs up, let's get on that. But I'd need to see it. And if we got to see it in round 0, so just watch him. But the thing with Stuart, he always seems to have one of these injury affected games early, concussion games, something like that, where we usually able to pick him up cheaper. So I'll just hold off for now. But I do like the suggestion. I don't mind. I don't mind the idea that he could end up in your side at some point. I just don't think he's a starting option. Michael, if both play score well in round 0, can we start Roberts and Perryman along with Short going 5 deep in the defence at the moment? So I'm 5 deep in defence, but I have a combination of those guys. I'm pretty sure most people know which one I don't have. So I don't mind it as well. Like if you're saying not going like a Zorko, you don't want to pay up to 600k as much as they've got a great draw. Maybe the great draw doesn't suit him, but we've seen in the past it does. Go and say Zorko down to say Short, save you 150k, and maybe that's the difference to get. Say you don't like Berry or Kako, and that's where you want say a Finlayson, or you want a Flynn or somebody like that. And that's kind of where I'm at the moment. I feel like I'm pretty locked with maybe 24, 25 of my 31 selections. And there's one of them where Zorko is kind of on the fence there, because how close can Short, as much as I don't like him that much as a pick, how close can he get to Zorko? Is Zorko's draw just going to have him come out of the blocks for the first 5-6 weeks? And is he going to average 120? And is Short, going to be that typical 95 to 97 guy as he's been his whole career? And then is that 150k actually doing enough to my team? So is it, if I go to Hugo Garcia, if I go into Finlayson, how much can my rookie get close? And like your small forwards like your Berry and your Kakos, the difference about them, so they both had 14 touches on the weekend. Kako had 4 goals, gets the 97. Berry, I think it was 48, kicks no goals. The following week, let's just say, let's say round 2 is the obvious one there. So round 2, Essendon play Hawthorn, and Port Adelaide play my mob. So the easily there, Berry could get on the end of some. Sorry, Essendon play Adelaide. I apologize. Essendon play Adelaide. So let's just say Kako gets locked down by like an Isaac Cumming, for example, has his 14 touches but doesn't get scored by impact. He comes back to that 40 to 50 point game. Berry gets on the end of the Port Adelaide domination of Richmond, and he has the 14 touches, kicks the 4 goals, and he's now getting the 100-point game. So they're going to swap a lot. And the fact that we've got potentially guys like Stone, other players who are going to be on loophole. Ben Patton, for example, on the forward line in round 3. We can have one on the bench and have one on the field, and we can loophole between them. So there's a potential there. The fact that we're getting 2 cracks at these small forwards, they could still able to score maybe an 80 on field for us because unlike taking the risk which one we play on field, we've got the opportunity to have both, and it's also best 18. So early on, both those scores might not even count. We just might be filled with so many other players. So all of a sudden, my 18th player is scoring 80 anyway. So do I really need to go put that money from Zorko down to short into somebody else when all that player is going to score 90 anyway? I'm getting 10 points more out of them as it is. But the gap between Zorko and short might be 30 points or 40 points. So that's kind of my thought process at the moment. A little bit in depth, like kind of stats there where it's like, because I feel like Zorko, we've seen in the past, and especially last year, and no Kitty Coleman, he could just go berserk. So, but if you don't have the cash and you don't want to muck around with the rest of your team, and you really want to go kind of 5 deep, no problems, because I'm all about the 5 deep in defense. I think with the lack of rookies, a lot of people keep sending me their team and it's got 4 defenders, and I don't like the 4 defenders at all. I would actually prefer, as much as I don't like Short that much, I prefer Short over Rankin. And I know Rankin's a star and he could absolutely come out of the blocks. But it's nothing to do with the premiums. It's all to do with the rookies. Even if Short's only scoring like 90-odd and Rankin's still going 110 and 10 and he just has a flying start, the difference there is, again, those sort of rookies. Now, the score there, as I was saying, because it's best 18, Rankins will score count more than what a Short score would, because that rookie score will just get taken out. But then it's that next part to it is I've got a dead defender rookie just sitting there who's not making any cash for me. And you've got to also think about that. Now, I don't mind the dead rookie play, and some people are saying to me, I don't care, D6, D7, D8, even if the rookies aren't doing much, fine, I'm going to get the score because I want the premium guys in the forward line who are going to potentially, they might score better because that's who I want to go with. Fine. But then what happens in 6, 7, 8 weeks' time when these dead rookies in the defense have made no money, 10K, 30K, whatever, and we've seen this in the past. And the forwards that you could have had, who might have not been scoring as good, you might have been sacrificing 10 or 20 points each week, but that forward's now made 100K or 150K, and your team now looks better, and you'll make those points up as the time goes on. So I think the 5 defense is great. And if that's where you want to go, be it Roberts, Perryman, Short, or take a risk on one of those options I said before, I much prefer that. That's my personal prediction and thoughts. But like, I'm no problems if you don't believe in that. That's cool. In the end of the day, it is your team. But that's my personal thought, that these rookie defenders, and we've seen it enough times over many years, even like the rookie defenders when we've had them, like Zach Reid, gets injured. So I'm really worried about that situation. So thank you for that question, because it's a great question. Completely. So many more questions to get into. We will just take a pause on those questions for a second. Send the questions in, guys, because we have somebody who's going to help answer the question. I love this guy. He's just a superstar. My man, Joe. How are you, mate?
I am very sorry, is what I am.
Sorry, Joe. I know what I've done. So hold that thought, mate. I've got you on mute. Oh, mate. Welcome, mate.
We're good? We're good now? It's all right?
I forgot I muted it before because I was like, I'm not talking to anyone. I don't need the sound on. Mate, how are you?
I'm very good and very apologetic for joining so late in the piece. It's we had a lot of questions on our stream that we just had just finished up, and I did tell you that I'd love to come on. So much love. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a while, man. How you been?
Mate, I've been good. Yeah, I was saying to the guys before, it's just like, I'm flying. Everything's going well. Had some good news from a legal point of view, which is great. We're heading in the right direction. Work's going good. Cricket season could have been slightly better, but I do, as again, Fury, Jamie, and everybody helped me out with that 300th game. That was amazing. So, yeah, no, I'm fine, mate.
That's really good, man. I just can't wait for the footy to start. It's unfortunate that the game tonight was but look, it was correct. The correct decision was finally reached by the AFL. Bloody trying to fight over broadcasting rights and whatnot. But look, looking forward to the game tomorrow night. Hopefully,
Well, it's great to actually sit there and get some footy. I didn't mind the fact because we can talk to our lovely fans out here. And a lot of our fans do crossover. It's great.
we do.
Don't normally need to give the Centre Bounce Boys a plug because most of you guys out there know what Centre Bounce Boys are doing. Big J, Joe, fantastic. But you are working on another project this year. I don't know how much you can say about that, but do you want to give yourself a little plug here, mate?
Yeah, sure. It's haven't really announced this one yet. So this was the exclusive. This will be the first
exclusive here, guys. This is what we're about here on Supercoach Insider.
Exactly. There you go. You get the inside scoop here. I am going to be doing another podcast with Coach Cole, and for all you Collingwood fans out there, you might know this guy, one Brody Holland. So the three of us are going to be starting up another podcast. We'll be recording the very first pilot episode this Monday night, and it's called the Number One Footy Podcast. I know it's very generic, but we wanted to get in and tell everyone that what we're about. We want to be the number one footy podcast. It's going to be a lot of comedy, a lot of fun, as well as, of course, some takes on the football as the week goes along. It's called Number One Footy Podcast. There is an Instagram page, I think, already set up for it, and there might be some promotional clips coming out for it. If not already today, then tomorrow. So keep an eye out on that one. It will be a very funny one. I'll be the anchor of the show, trying to keep Coach Cole and Brody Holland from going absolutely bananas.
And for those in our audience who might have gone to our live show that we did on Grand Final Eve, which was a lot of fun, which you hosted and did a magnificent job hosting. And you're rightly spot there, mate. And we did have Coach. We have Brody's stories were brilliant, so I'm sure he'll add a lot. So yeah, mate, I'll look forward to that as an onlooker because I don't do as much now for the as much as I used to, maybe for the Fancast boys, but you are very much a big part of that. So I look forward to it. So yeah, check out what Joe is doing there.
Thanks, man.
Not a problem. Yes, I love it, mate. All right, let's get back to some of your questions, guys. Some more are coming in, which we absolutely love. As I said, love your questions. Got the big man here, Joe, to help me out with some of these. So let's go. I think I had a claim. Thanks. Cheers, with no problems, mate. Supercoach Clowns. Yes, some of the names on here, guys. Just before you go, some of your names are awesome. Like I know I butcher it, and I'm quite famous for butchering some names and that. I really shouldn't because my name. Well, maybe it's just the fact that everyone's butchered my name for such a long time. But these are great. They always give me a chuckle. I actually then talk to people about it. I go, "Did you see some of these names on my podcast?" All right. So if Boyd doesn't get named for round one, will you keep him as a loophole in non-bye rounds, or would you pick somebody like AKA Reedy, maybe if Sims gets an opportunity? How are you feeling about that, mate?
I've never really considered the idea of Boyd not getting named. It just felt like, yeah, it's a really good question because he was clearly recruited for a reason, and obviously the injury to King. So you just felt like even when Marshall is named, it just felt like Marshall was going to be playing more of a forward. But if Boyd doesn't get named round one because someone like a Keeler, for example, has taken that spot, then, or maybe Marshall is just going to be solo rucking, then, I would probably think of Reed because Reed from West Coast has got the DPP and he would be a good loophole because West Coast play a lot of Sunday games. Now, Reedy is someone who can't even beat Livingston in the ruck, and he'll score 15. So even if you were to pick him and he plays, he'll score 15 points and go down backwards in price before you trade him out without the DPP, and he's an elevated price player. So if anything, I think Reed, I think, will get games at some points during the course of the season. So it's not like he's a dedicated loophole. He's someone who might be a loophole some weeks, and other weeks might play and give you the flexibility of ruck forward. So I might go with a West Coast Reed personally.
Yeah, man, I don't mind that so much. Yeah, I think he's cheap enough. Sims is cheap enough. Yeah, Reedy. It's funny because Damo from Perth, our correspondents over there, from the Footy Mailbag, gives me a lot of the Freo news. Got a couple other people that actually dropped me some stuff, but they're like, yes, Reedy will be the guy. He'll be playing ahead of Jackson as in that ruckman position, which might have not gone down too well with Luke Jackson because they want to keep him in his normal structure. And now, apparently he wants to come back to Victoria. So that'll be an interesting watch come the trade period as all those sort of discussions. Don't usually get them popping up right now, those sort of big news. But yeah, they're going to play him, but he's awful. And then Damo was messaging me going like, this guy is so bad. You can't, even if he was 40K, I don't know if you're putting him in your team. So the worry is what if Boyd doesn't get named? And I was just saying this earlier, St Kilda would have been one of those teams I actually wanted to play in round 0. I don't like opening around. Let's get that straight around. I hate it. But
likewise.
To get a look at these teams early, I would have loved to get because they've got so many rookies. They're actually really relevant from Supercoach perspective this year. To see how Wes Sinclair comes back and fits in. Is it Hasty, Boxshall, O'Connell, Boyd? Even it's like Sinclair versus Nasiah, and they've split. Jack Steele with McRae working in that midfield. We got Hugo Garcia. For a team that's
whole team
on a footy perspective is not usually relevant. Geez, they're a big Supercoach team this year.
100%. Would have loved to also have seen, from the Bombers, whether, just how cemented Jackson Pryor is into the side. Does he coexist with, what sort of role he plays coexist with Mason Redman, can set things up there. Baz, what sort of role Baz is going to play? Is he going to, how much midfield time? Is he going to be more in a wing? Is he going to be more on the ball? Like there's so much we would have loved to have seen in from these guys, but it used to be that we never got any free looks at them. So whatever look we can get at this point is certainly one that we're appreciative of.
Yeah. Now, and you are the same, lucky in this role because we get to talk to other people, other content creators. So I did have last year's champion messaging me yesterday and today, and he was messaging me to his team updates and some and going through, which is awesome. Like, there's no, mate, you just run it, and you're talking to me about, that's cool. He's a great bloke, Jove, and that was great to have him on the pod last night. The other day when we did well, it's funny because I got stitched up something beauty there because. I've had obviously a million guests on throughout this preseason, and I've sort of tried to line up with people like as Joe here as an Essendon supporter, get him on the Essendon pod. So I was told by multiple people that Joven supported Melbourne. So I had him locked in for the D's pod, and he says, yeah, no props, Wiz. I'm more than happy to come on, chat the D's. Knows his footy, knows his stuff. So it's great. So he comes on, and we get talking off air as we always do. So you guys, we just love it. It'd be no different than Joe and me being in the same room right now. Off air, we'll sit there and we have a chat. A lot of us are mates outside of this, so it's great.
Yeah.
And there's other people who I don't actually have met, but you just get chatting to it and you end up becoming mates down the chat. So Jove and I had never actually met, but we just get chatting. And I'm like, mate, how long you support the D's, all this, all that and stuff. And it's like, dude, I'm a Geelong supporter. I'm like, mate, I've literally had 3 people tell me you're a Melbourne supporter. He's like, dude. And then I'm like, well, my Geelong guys pulled out. Do you want to do the Geelong pod with me too? And he's like, yeah, sure, mate. I'll stick around. Let's do that. That sounds awesome.
Every heart beats true for the red and the blue. It's true.
It's because I think because his team last name was last year was Caleb Windsor Not. So I think people kind of got confused with that. And I don't know if somebody had actually also spread that news saying he's a D supporter. And I actually knew, I had it wrote down ages ago when I was looking through it. This guy's a Geelong supporter because I kind of did some stalking and stuff and found it. And I don't know where I found it, but I was just like, oh, you're kidding me, right? So, yeah, that was a bit of fun there.
All right,
Global. We love Global. There. Thanks, mate. I was jumping on. Gay, my brother. Yes, mate. We love it. So I talked about this a moment ago. Currently got Fraser at D5. Some people are asking, what is the options under 400K? So you would have missed that bit, Joe, but just to rehash, I was saying SDK, there's a lot of questions about it, so I'm not that hot on it. Only 2% less at 8% own is Fraser. Bont was talking up Fraser big time at the captain's day, and they were talking about Supercoach. So I don't mind that. It's really left field. He's going to have to obviously do a lot to... maybe it's like a 90 to get that 100K, but I don't, as long as you're not viewing him as a keeper, And, we want at least 100K of the rookies. Can Fraser do that? Yes. The fact that Bont is all over this kid, and he showed it last year against North Melbourne, that second last round with a 136. So I think personally, I'd rather go a cheaper option. I'm debating over, say, Jacob Blight for my team because I just see, it's going to take so many marks down at Richmond. But, no Caleb Daniel, no JJ. He's clearly the second guy coming out of half back. If Bailey Dale gets any attention, Fraser's going to have his games where he could go off. And if he gets a hot start, and I think the Dogs are going to struggle those first 5 weeks now with Bont being out. So he could see a lot more ball. So, Globes, if that's your one pod guy, and I always say, guys, you only really want one pod, like when I'm talking pod, a real pod like this, that could be the difference for you.
Yeah, 100%. It can be really dicey. Bailey Dale, it just feels like he is the man, and he was taking all of the kick-ins. I mean, you were saying it in the preseason, he'd take the kick-in, run up, get the follow-up handball, receive, and kick it out as well. So, he's the man, and you anticipate that he will just slot back into that role. I'm not entirely sure why he missed the practice games. Someone mentioned
one game they rested him. One game they rested him. The other game, I'm not too sure. Maybe it was just, I think, general soreness.
Okay. So it's not like he was injured, for example, and therefore they're going to take it easy with him. Like, he should be refreshed to go now if he missed those practice games and it was just general soreness. So you'd anticipate that he'd be itching to get out there and hog all those kick-ins.
These dog supporters, these dog players, geez, they might change vets here because they've been struggling a little bit this preseason.
Oh man, that midfield mix, obviously they're saying Ed Richards will play round 1, but calf strain. Do you want to rush him back? But no Bontempelli, so maybe they do rush him back. It would be disastrous if he re-injures that. If he re-injures that calf again, gee, they will be up ship's creek.
The Dogs right now are looking at the fact that their draw, they have to beat North Melbourne. Because if they don't, I feel like they start 0-5.
Yep.
And
then
if you're 0-5, your season's done. It's just there's no coming. It's like, okay, teams do get a runs. I think the year Richmond. I think the year we kicked into the cyclone at Adelaide and we got thrashed. Like we were like 3-9 or 3-10 come mid-season, and then we got on a run, won like 9 in a row, made finals. So it's not out of the realms that a team can do that. But I think us that year was like there was stats around it. Like this happens so rarely. The Dogs would be naturally facing that situation, and you just look at that draw. So after North Melbourne, who somehow the other day when I was looking at this, North were at $2.90. You've now stretched out to $3.14. Gamble responsibly, guys. But I got nobody's loving North Melbourne because they've lost the West Coast. But yeah, they've got their big history 100-year anniversary against Collingwood at the G. They're going to want to put on a big performance for that.
Yes.
But then the Pies, I feel like the Pies could be up and about this year, so that's a struggle. The Blues, the Dockers away, and then the Lions in Adelaide. Like it's just brutal. Like I was sitting there going, who have the Lions and the Blues paid to get such a great fixture to start the year, especially the Lions being the premiers? What the hell have the Dogs done to AFL House? Because they have been absolutely bevoed this year.
Yep. I have no idea what Carlton did. Honestly, those endless brown paper bags at Carlton, like, why are we have double ups against 4 finalists? We finished 11th. Like, what the hell is going on? And then you look at the Carlton, and they got the biggest piss week fixture of all time. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
And it's because it's a fixture. If you haven't seen already, you've got to grow up with this. So I did do a podcast with the AFL Fans Association president. Great sitting down and chatting to him. Ron was awesome. If you've got grievances like this, and we did talk about the fixtures in it, go to my video, leave some comments, and I can pass them on to Ron. Or even better, I've put in the links in my show notes for that. You can how to become a member of the AFL Fans Association. It's free to join up. The more obviously members they get, the more weight they get because Andrew Dillon is sitting down and meeting with them. So if us fans want to do something about stuff like this, if you're a Carlton supporter, you're probably like, no, nothing needs to change right now. But yeah, there's too many inconsistencies. And we go through a lot of different topics. So I put it up on Spotify too. Even if you can't listen to it all at once, have a little, like, when you're walking the dog, see if you can listen to 10, 15 minutes. I put it as chapters as well, guys. We cover a lot of topics which your fans, and also we went through like the fan survey. So we got some of the topics from there as well. So from a non-super coach, and I know we're here for super coach, but from a footy point of view, we all want fair and good footy. And so, sort of, I thought, let's take a bit of a stand here and get the man on that can make change.
That's awesome. I'm definitely going to watch that after this.
Thoughts on the midfield of Brayshaw, Rosie, Oliver, and Shearer, Will Ashcroft. So you've got the 5 in there, which is pretty general, like most people have the 5, but you've got the extra guy in the 400 range. And then Sardars, Ashcroft, and Sheldrick, which is pretty standard and Nevitt at 9. So my personal thing, from Will Ashcroft down to Nevitt, I think that's pretty consistent what you would have probably been saying as well, Joe?
Yes.
Yeah. The question is, are you willing to run? Now, I've got a one issue with this, but I'll throw it over to you, Joe. What are your thoughts on the 5 that he's got in there?
Look, I think the 5 are good, are fine. The only thing for me is I just feel like it's with Ashcroft, Levi, of the Levi variety. I just think, given the interrupted preseason, he could be subbed. I think there's a real potential for him to be subbed out of the game. He only had like 60% time on ground in the practice game as well last week. For me, I feel like Ashcroft's best position is at the flex for me, in case if he plays the full game, he could score you 85, 90. But if he gets subbed out on a lower score, then it doesn't really count. I just think with Nevitt, with the reports of him going to be playing a lot more midfield this year, and the preseason game, he looked unreal with with the most CBAs as well. I think Nevitt would be a really good on-field option, and having someone like Levi in at the flex would probably be my ideal setup. Unless, of course, you're running with someone like a Flynn at flex, then figure what I said there.
Yeah, for sure. My issue with the Brayshaw, Rosie, who I think Oliver looked great, Shearer, I'm a big fan of, and then you've got Will Ashcroft, who's the medium. Who is your vice captain and captain on any given week with that bunch? Like Brayshaw is going to have good games. Rosie, round 2, Richmond, great, no problems there, and he could still score well. But I don't have as much faith on every given week. Like, you probably spread you've spread and probably got a better spread team, but I want that clear. Even if you've sort of got a really solid Ruck and Cherry who could potentially be one of those VC or captain options, I really want one of the a premium midfielder who I can bank on in case something goes wrong with the VC. So it's either, for me, I feel like you got to have one of Neil or Sarong because of that situation. Now that Neil doesn't have the early buy, the fixture that they've been absolutely delivered for a potential another flag here, which is just off the charts. So I like him because, on any given week, Neil can go 140. And then Sarong's, I feel like, the safety bet as well and has some safe games. So that's my feeling on it. I don't know if you've got either of them or neither or whatever, but I just feel like that makes me feel like I'm going to sleep better at night knowing that I've got an option there who's going to be a good captain on any given week.
I reckon, I don't know, like we're all happy to start Clayton Oliver because of his value, but do we also believe that Clayton Oliver is back to the Clayton Oliver of old? In a given week, Clayton Oliver could be a decent captaincy option, and Sheasel in our backline. Yeah, I know he's lining up in our backline in our Supercoach team, but in reality, he's playing on ball at North Melbourne, and Sheasel is basically day cost 2.0. So you could very well, especially with that role playing around the ball, getting a lot of of those contested possessions, could hit the scoreboard. He's legit day cost 2.0, and you're happy captaining day costs every day of the week. You know what I mean? So if you don't have day costs, you've got day cost 2.0 in Sheasel. And I think Sheasel could very well be a very decent captaincy option as well. I mean, he's got the Dogs to start with, very injury riddled to start off the season, could score really well at Marvel. He's got Melbourne at Marvel. He loves to play that deck. He's got quite a few Marvel games to start the season as well, so
I like that, mate. Yeah, I like it, mate.
Don't mind Sheets.
Yeah, good, mate. You're not here to agree with me. It's great.
Exactly.
Different opinions.
Not a
That's
yes
what we're
man.
about. That's why. No, we don't want yes man. It's boring if you
Exactly.
just come on and agree everything what I say. Here's one for you, mate. Thoughts on Hobbs' 260 forward capacity to give me a nice spike.
Jeez. Hobbsy, he's a conundrum, man. He's like, you've given me a conundrum here, Globes. I don't think anyone knows what we're going to do with Hobbs. Like, we gave him a crack in the preseason game, but we weren't playing with best 22. We were just running everybody through. You know, like, is he ahead of Merritt? Is he ahead of Sardis? Is he ahead of Caldwell? Is he ahead of Durham? I wouldn't say he's ahead of any of those guys. Now, Durham is going to be playing more forward. Yes, that's correct, which opens up the door for Elijah Sardis to play more time on the ball. Caldwell didn't even play half of the practice game because he was coming off of a hip surgery towards the end of last year. And so he had a bit of an interrupted preseason, and we've sort of slowly eased him back into things. But he's going to be playing full-time midfield next year. He's one of our best contested ball winners and clearance players. And when we started off on fire at the start of the game, it was because we had Caldwell around the ball and he was just extracting the ball at will. You started to see Hobbs get a lot more time in the second half when Caldwell wasn't there. Don't think Hobbs is best 22. Don't think Hobbs is going to score, is going to play enough to be able to give you those scores, unfortunately. So for me, he's a no.
Yeah, 100% agree with that one, mate. All right. Global, yes. I used to keep for Notting Hill. Yeah, so I obviously keep for my. I think I may have played a game against Notting Hill. I think I might have. Jonas Goat, hey, mate. Sloppy Joe's about to jump on with you. Well, here he is, mate. Here he is. As we
Hello.
Yes, we're going to try to get through some of these questions because we are thoroughly answering them for you. What is Luke Jackson's role switch? I didn't catch Freo's match, but heard he was attending most stoppages as an extra midfielder. Yes, that is true. So it will be interesting to see sort of what goes forward in the next few weeks because they want him with his flexibility in the side. That's why they're playing Reedy as bad as he is. Yep. Well, I shouldn't say bad, young fella, whatever, and stuff like that. But Jesus,
he's bad. You can say it. He's bad.
He's bad. So I've burnt that bridge. Liam Reedy's no chance to ever come on my show.
Sorry, Liam. I apologize. It was all on me.
Nothing personal. Right? It's nothing personal, but it is you, not me. But it's so they want Reedy in the ruck until Darcy comes back. So Jackson can be that 20 to 30% guy that he normally is. That gets in the ruck. He does the forward craft as well, and then he can push into the midfield and be that extra rotation, especially at the moment why Hayden Young is injured. So because he ruins the stuff, because they want Matt Johnson as the fourth guy. So not to really affect that too much. Yeah, Jackson's just going to take those extra minutes through there. So he's doing a bit of everything. He's actually not that bad of a pick to start the season. Correct. But I would prefer him if he was playing that ruck role like we did last year. If he was playing R1 and the new, now I've heard different reports, Darcy could try to get up for round 4. I still think he should try to get for round 6 because that's the max score in game away. And they play the Tigers in round 5, don't really need it. But they're talking about maybe the Dogs, but I would rather Jackson in the ruck against English anyway. I think that's not a bad matchup. So what the Dockers should have done is Darcy's not ready to round 6. Jackson's going to ruck those first 5 weeks. And if that was the case, Luke Jackson starting in my team just like he did last season. And we know then at some point throughout the year, Darcy's probably going to go down. But they are committed to make Reedy in that ruck. So it makes it hard because we don't know on any given week, how much. When is Jackson going to be in those midfield rotations, and when is he going to have to play forward? There's just too many questions. So unfortunately, I think he's a bit of a non-pick because it would have been awesome to start him, even as R2, until you try to work out what the hell's going with his ruck situation, or have him R2 with have him forward with Flynn, and you could do a whole lot of stuff with the like say a Sims or your man Archer Reed there in the R3. You could have had Jackson forward, and then if Flynn for whatever reason swapping around, and there's plenty of stuff you could have done. So it's a bit frustrating there.
Yeah. No, I agree. He's also going to be reliant. If he's not the one doing the ruck contest and he's on the ground, it means that Reedy is doing the ruck contests, and I don't know how much faith you can have in really tapping the ball down to him is the problem. It's going to probably be won by the opponent, by the opposing ruck. Looking at to start off, I mean, they've got Geelong in round 1, so they should be okay. Sydney in round 2, does Grundy get up for that? But after that, it's got West Coast, that's a green matchup. English, green matchup. Richmond, green matchup. So, if they've got 4 green matchups out of the first 5 for the ruck for those in the ruck, which is quite decent, which is, an absolute shame that Jackson isn't rucking in those weeks. Even for the inside mids, it's not too bad. Geelong's is a slightly green one. The Eagles are very solid green. Richmond's very solid green. And Melbourne's solid green. So, the Fremantle boys could be okay to start with, but 509K, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, 100%, mate. A few ones just praising you here, Joe. Thanks, Wooden Spoon Data. Thanks, Global. The love here. Yeah, hold you guys. We all love doing the rounds. It's Monday and Thursday nights. I think you're going to see a lot of us like doing the rounds here.
Absolutely.
There was another person who was potentially going to join us, but the other guy is like, I can't back up and do too many. Joe putting thanks. Okay, not super coach relevant, but if Essendon Gold Coast game gets pushed back to the end of the season, will that stuff up some teams' Mad Mondays as they won't know what to do? Okay, so I put out a tweet, not as good as my tweet the other day, which was I don't even call it a tweet anymore, but the one I talked about kicking into the wind.
Yes, that was funny.
Win. I have nearly 50,000 views on that. That is amazing because I usually get like 1,000 views on my tweet. That was
was so good.
I had my little moment of going trending there.
Viral.
Viral, mate. But I did put out, so a mate messaged me and said, what is the chances? Because I hate this. And I just had a question here. Somebody make a comment when talking about the AFL Fans Association from Craig. He's like, whatever happens in AFL, I do not want to see the wild card round brought in.
Yeah.
Is Essendon Gold Coast, the fact that they could potentially put that midweek between that sort of buy and whatever, is this their first step of trying to make us adjust to the fact that they are bringing the wild card round? And if that's the case, they're going to want one of these teams in contention for finals. Now, they hate you guys and that. They're not looking after Essendon.
Obviously.
But their baby that they've invested millions of dollars in is now potentially playing the last game of the season as a wild card match. I can't wait to watch the umpiring in Gold Coast games. Now that was what my mate brought up to me. Bit of a conspiracy theorist he is, but I tell you what, when I kind of got thinking about it, there's a little bit of merit there. So, I agree. That probably should be Mad Monday for both those teams, but. Yeah, just the AFL, they're dodgy.
I'm not watching that game. I just know.
At a protest.
At a protest? My eyes will bleed.
We're not watching that game.
Yes, correct. Out of protest, guys, just boycott that game. Do not watch that game. Do not give them any ad revenue or anything, whatever. Just do not give them the worst ratings under the sun because there's going to be some shenanigans going on.
Because if that all happen, it'll be like Essendon Gold Club. It might be both teams, but one of them might be like, if they win, they make the finals, and the AFL will be like, everyone's going for it. And you know what? Then Hutchie will come out. I've been saying it for the last 6 years. We should have wildcard weekend, and it'll be get back on footy classified, and we'll be carrying on like an absolute pork chop and stuff, and and everybody else is like, we don't want this dude, but no, they want it because it's 2 extra games that they make, lots of money from. Yeah, it's Joe.
It's me. What am I doing down there?
Corey, my last thing, I'm definitely, what's that last thing? Is that definitely? Yeah, 2 forward rookies. Yeah. Oh, okay. 2 forward rookies or 2 defender rookies. Was there a question before that?
I guess he's asking, maybe the question might be, do we prefer 2 defender rookies or do we prefer 2
forward rookies? 100%.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Easy. It's an easy question, mate. Hey, centre-backs. I heard Finlayson is a gun this year. Jeez.
He was taking the piss out of me because someone was asking on our stream about whether or not it's worth starting Bailey Smith, And I said, look, it is, because if it doesn't work, there are other options that if it doesn't work, you have other options that you can go to, for example, that you can trade to. And I just chucked Finlayson as an example, as someone that you could go to playing in the back line. Hey, and by the way, BZT is out for 10 weeks.
Oh,
Did
so
you
it's
know
10
that?
weeks now. I hadn't heard that confirmed. So, wow. Great, mate.
10 weeks. No
Wow.
BZT. And Asava, we already know, was playing more forward. And there's obviously the Marshall injury in the forward line for Port as well. So it just seems like, is it possible that we can see more of Finlayson in the back line? And if that is the case and the Bailey Smith selection fails, then you can very easily go down from Bailey Smith to Finlayson. And all these guys have decided to take the absolute piss out of me.
No, mate, I
saying
said, because
Finlayson.
we had my supporters earlier on asking me about Finlayson, and I said I personally would not think you start him, but he could be one that you swap into, because then we get
Yes,
more clarity around this Port Adelaide backline and how
correct.
these injuries are tracking. Because again, just because I say BZT 10 weeks, it might be 10 weeks sometimes. Look at Treloar. Treloar was 7 weeks a week ago.
Yep.
Now he's apparently playing next week. So,
Yeah.
but BZT could become a season long. It could be, who knows? So, I would rather do that, because then we get to see it. The only issue is they play Richmond, and if we can somehow get the ball over the centre way, he could take a lot of intercept marks. He might not see the ball at all. He might just sit down in the goal square and pour himself a cup of tea and whatever, because
Exactly.
we're awful. Fuzzy Wolf, love your works. Thanks, mate, and appreciate. Let's go, Global. Yeah, remember this. Nick Bryan will make at least 150K because this year as our preferred ruck. No. Sorry, mate. But that's fine. Garcia versus SPP. If I've got to lean to one, I think it's Garcia, but I'm not actually. I've actually really cooled on both.
Both.
Yeah,
I have both in my team at the moment.
Oh, that's great, mate. That's great. So I'm off both. Joe's on both. Love this. This is great. This is awesome.
Look, it's for the price. For the price that you pay, I think the return that you get points per dollar, I think it's quite good. Power Pepper, I think the big thing for me is that he plays Richmond round 2, and there's no Butters, so there's an injury there. Possibility that he could come up as an extra player at the stoppage, as a maybe high half forward type thing, with now one less of the guns in the midfield, and obviously playing against Richmond in round 2 at home could really be a nice opportunity to get a big spike game out of him. Don't think that he's going to be the sub, because he's now been elevated into the leadership group. You don't really sub out your leaders or use them as the sub. And he looked okay in the
unless you're
practice game,
GWS and you're dropping Cornelio, but stuff like that. But
unless you did something orange team business, you know what I mean. So, and then Hugo, I think he's had the role still around the ball, attending the CBAs. I'm not entirely sure how serious St Kilda were in that practice game against Port. They really weren't chasing very hard, and they just seemed a bit lethargic. Very different to the week before, and we were all raving about Garcia at the time. So how a team performs can obviously really impact the eye test. I still think he attended enough CBAs for my liking, and that's why I think there's definite value in both for me.
I've got no problem with the value. I just think there's so many forward rookies. I don't necessarily need to spend so much money to go up to them, because we have options this year. And that's where because at the moment, I could move Patton back into the back line if one of these other rookies don't get up, but I kind of do like him there. We've got Davidson should just be locked in. Davidson's our F6. I don't think there's any dispute there from anybody in the chat that's not starting Davison. Put your hand up and out yourself. But so I think there's Davidson. Connor Stone's could be a potential option. I've talked about the Berry versus Kako and how you can potentially loophole them. I guess if you've got the extra 40K, is Power Pepper better than Berry? Yeah, probably. But no, it's not saying Berry couldn't go. Like I was saying earlier, both of them are 14 possession type guys, 10 to 14 possession type guys. Kako and Berry had the exact same game on the weekend. It's just that Kako kicked 4 goals, Berry didn't. And
Correct.
some weeks, Kako's going to get on it. Some weeks, Berry will get on it because both of them are classy young forwards. So you're going to have a spike game. So if you can kind of, alternate between them as one of those guys on the spot. Connor Stone, we know. There's a couple other guys that we're kind of looking at. Even somebody I was looking at kind of, I want to know what, it's a shame because we can't see it now in round 0, but I wanted to see what's going to happen in that Brisbane setup. I know Gallup didn't play that well up at the game the other day. Probably maybe the conditions didn't suit him so much. But if he is the one that they're going, if it's not Sam Day, depending on what they do there, because they've lost Joe Danaher. So
that's right.
They've got a full forward in the best team in the competition playing 3 of the worst teams in the competition. Who doesn't matter. You and I could probably go out there with a Brisbane top. We're going to get an opportunity at some point to take a mark and kick a goal. So it's, I think there's quite a few forward rookies. And that's where I'm kind of looking at my team going, do I need to alter the rest of my team to fit these guys in? Like I probably, like that would mean, say, downgrading Neil, for example, or downgrading Zorko. Now I could go Zorko down to, say, a short and get the 150K, get Garcia and get Pal Pepper. And it's one of those things back in my mind. Yes, I could do that. But then is the gap between Zorko? What's the gap between Zorko and short pretty well to start the year? And that's kind of where I'm trying to make the balance in my head. So there's ways you can sort of do it. I kind of like how I've got structured. So, but I'm not against people doing it as well, depending on how you've kind of set up.
Yeah, Jonas, I think Pal Pepper for me. I think Pal Pepper for me. I'm really happy to have. He's done 60s in the role, and I think being in the leadership group, as Jonas here mentions, they got one of 4 people in the leadership group. They clearly rate him, and I think he's a very decent player personally. Brings good pressure. Quite a few games at home.
If you had to answer Fozzie's question and pick between them,
if I had to pick between them, I'd probably go Pal Pepper, just because. Yeah, I mean he's 65. Yeah, it's a lot of money. That's 65 grand. You can do quite a bit with 65 grand. That could be the difference between if you started Sicily, for example, because like me, I was pretty bullish on Sicily, but it looks like he's locked in to play forward now based on the team that they listed. That 65K could get me from Sicily up to a Whitfield Zorko type that is likely to be top 3 defender locked in. You know what I mean? So it is a big difference. And as you say, the rookie price players are pretty good in the forward line. And I think SPP being a rookie price player doesn't have to average as much to make that money.
Yeah, if the cash didn't make any difference, I'd still go Garcia just because he's got the better role. But in saying that, Pal Pepper could get a ton of points against the Tigers anyway, so could counteract that. But then Garcia gets to play the Tigers too early on, so they both get to play the Tigers. It's all about playing the Tigers this year.
Correct.
Have you fellas got any players you would specifically start because of best 18 to start the season, aka SDK, Lynch, get a good score and a crap score that won't count? So he means there, so you've got a player who could go, the sort of player that this guy's too dear, but the great example that you're given there, Jonas Goat, is Amati from Sydney, because he's a guy that can kick 8-9 goals. Jesse Hogan, I actually looked at Harry Mackay at one point just because he's playing Richmond first week, but it's that sort of guy that can kick a bag, who's going to go somewhere between that 150 and 200, which is the massive difference in best 18. But then what do you do for the other weeks? Well, it doesn't really matter. The problem with all those guys, they're too expensive to kind of pick in that situation. That's where, Brisbane don't have the right price. If Sam Day was the guy they're going for and he was 200K, sure, why not? But then he's I think he's only played 9 or 13 games. No, something like that. It might be 13 games in 3 years or something ridiculously low like that. So no confidence there, but I get what you mean. And if there was a player in the right price, I probably would. I guess as close to that as I've got is probably Adam Chera from the Blues, because likewise. I just think he's going to go nuts. So I'd love another Carlton player in my team, maybe an Ollie Hollands. I have played with that kind of idea because I just think their fixtures are ridiculous. But no, to answer your question, no, I don't. But I do like that idea. If you can kind of find somebody who is, and they're going to be 1 or 0% owned. If you can find that player, and it's most likely going to be a forward but I just feel like it'd have to come from probably a Brisbane, a Carlton, something like that, where they've got just such an easy draw. They could kick an absolute bag. But unfortunately, they got injury, so there's no clear person.
Yeah, the thing with SDK that I've been thinking about, because bringing up SDK, some of those tough ruck matchups that he has happens to be in best 18 weeks. My concern with SDK is that he plays in the ruck like they've been training him, and then it just doesn't work out because he's getting beat by better opponents, and Chris Scott sort of loses patience with it and makes the switch so that he's really not getting as much ruck time as before because he's just getting beat by better rucks. That's my concern. My concern is that he just ends up having a massive decrease in the amount of ruck contests that he attends just simply because the team is not getting first use of the ball. That, for me, is a bit of a concern, and he ends up sort of being a bit of a no man's land type of player. And for that price, I feel like you really want it to be sure of what you're going to get. And for me, I think it's too much of a risk personally for not as much upside, because I just can't trust Chris Scott enough personally.
Yeah, no, 100%. So yeah, there'll be somebody that will, but it's just not pointing out at the moment. I'll have to continue to think a little bit more. It'll be fixture dependent. Sometimes
Correct.
these things might not even be fixture dependent. Wooden Spoon Data, I think we need to start a movement, fix the fixture in 2026. No more opening round, and actually give everyone 1 or 2 weeks off at the same time. So I did talk about this very quickly with Ron the other day. I got bored at work the other day. I had free time. Like, I had my lunch break and whatever, and I was out in some suburb wherever there was nothing to do. So I actually was just getting my pen and paper and like, I can do this. I can come up with a better fixture. I'm about halfway through and I'm an hour into it. And all I did was got rid of round 0, put everybody. Actually, I gave everyone 2 buys, and I gave one after like the Anzac weekend, and I was like, okay, that's when the AFLW can kick off, because they can just play each other once and run concurrently. And then I gave a second buy after, I think it was like the Indigenous weekend, like round 17. So once everybody's played everyone once, none of this, you've played somebody twice before, you've played everybody once, you play that team in round 24, whatever. So I let everybody play everyone once. That's where I'm up to at the moment. And then have a bye. And then we have the last 7 rounds or 6 rounds or whatever the friggin' hell I'm going to come up with. But I was like, and I'm looking at it going, it actually works. This is how simple is this. Like, this is like it used to be. And then after 17 rounds, we can get an idea of where everyone is and stuff like that. Then you can have your trade, if you want to trade period, mid-season draft. I don't care what it. That's not for me. But from a fixture point of view, it just seems easy. Fraser to Mills could be the play if he fell. So that could be, because by then Mills could be back. Yeah. Cool, Chris. Like it. This is what I love about you guys. Come up with some really good ideas. Corey says Sydney was 6-6, weren't they? Do you know about last year or the year before? Maybe I can't remember.
Yeah, year before.
Year before. Maybe they were, yeah. But how often does that actually happen? It'd be still a struggle. Now, the Legends, to win the game, you have to be different. Finished 6-6-2 last year, but keen to do a completely different strategy. 2 different picks, the Governor and Mustache Man, Libba. Thoughts? The Governor, nobody is on. No Barras now.
Yeah.
I was thinking, does that mean a little bit more lockdown, or is that the other side of it, and it's just more ball for him to chip around? And Jeezy looked good again the other day.
He did. But he's very injury prone as well. He's getting a bit older.
They're both getting older.
They are both getting older. And I think Libba might be one Falcon away from retirement as well.
Yeah, I'm more worried about Libba there.
Unfortunately.
But the difference, I feel like Libba, it could be a knock early in the game. Yes, we've got this flex position, but all of a sudden got a premium, he's got 10 early in the game and he's got concussed off. I'm more worried about every time Libba goes in the contest, I'm worried about that's the end of him. McGovern, it's going to be more of a, soft tissue injury if it's going to happen. It's not, you're not worried about concussion. He's going to still have that loose role playing around the back line. He kicks every time. And then it's just about how many intercept marks the guy can get. It's not the worst idea. He's going to see plenty of ball. Just the age. And I think I need to see it without Barras now.
He had 11 kick-ins.
I know.
11 kick-ins
Insane.
played on 91% of the time for 78 Supercoach points. How do you have 11 kick-ins and finish on 78 Supercoach points? Like that just, I don't know. I just don't know how that works for Jeremy McGovern.
And that's the worry now, because does he
can't.
see as much ball? Because you got guys like Liam Bacon now down there wanting, he's like they're the distributor as well.
Yes.
So, like, I get where you're going from. Until like that news when maybe Treloar was back early and whatever, I could live maybe like I did like the liver idea. But now that he's back, and like I've always got that question in my mind. So, if I had to choose, it's McGovern. I like the idea of going to pod. I don't know if they're the different two picks that you should be going, but I do like the one pod I love. If you can live with him missing the bye round, is Isaac Heaney, because nobody's on him this year. And last year, geez, he started on a house like fire. People are trying to, I think more people are thinking how he finished last season, but now no Mills, no Goulden to start the year. Heaney to the moon in that midfield again could just absolutely rip the competition to shred. And like, how many Brownlow votes in him getting early in the season? Like, he was dominant. He's like averaging like 140 at one stage.
Yeah. And
what's he own? Like, I think it's like 2% or something stupid like that. I'll see if I can get it up while Joe answers the next question. So we'll come back to that one in a minute. Actually, we'll come back. That's one for me. Wooden Spoon Data, but both are good names. All right, here we go. Jonas. Melbourne offered Oliver in a trade to Essendon and St Kilda for pick 8 and 9 at the time during the trade week, but neither team was interested. Melbourne had no interest in Geelong's future first. Yeah, that'll be an interesting one. How that, like, there was a bit about, I know why, yeah, Melbourne obviously wanted a lot more, and they didn't want to send him to Geelong. Teams are sick of like loading up Geelong. But yeah, that it'd be interesting if that was the case and both teams turned him down because they didn't want to potentially take on the problems.
Oh my God.
You know anything about that, mate?
If that's true, I'd be very upset. Like, pick 8 and 9 for Oliver, I think is worth it.
For St Kilda, but 8 and 9, are they better off with the two? Well, they're probably thinking we need to rebuild, get talent in, the two kids. They're already bringing McRae in.
Yeah, but for us, but
for you guys, but you had the two picks. Yeah,
we signed Parrish up for a long-term deal, and
that's the Parrish one. I've always thought it's been silly. It's never.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, we'll move on. I'll answer these couple. Jonas, Wooden Spoon Data. What is your Supercoach team? Fix the fixture 26 or the AFL fixture sucks? That's great. So Swizz's earlier team revealed convinced me I need two captains. So only Shield, Sheasel and Neil over 600k in my team. Mate, you've got Neil. I love it. That's fine. I think you just need one of those sort of guys as the backup because I feel like you need two of them. Anyway, that was my problem before with that team with no, like, I think Brayshaw was the main guy. I just don't think there's enough there. What is a balanced amount of rookies to have on field? Somebody did a poll about this the other day. I think the general consensus with the content creators, it was 7. I think that was the number, Joe.
Yes.
For that poll,
I've got 6 because I don't consider Pal Pepper a rookie.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I've personally got 6 on them, but yes, 7 seems to be the sweet spot. I think 6 or 7. You could go 8 because you're paying up for top dogs. Invest in early. I've got
18.
8. Yeah, for the best
I've
8.
Got all the top rookie. So Nod, Sardis, Sheldrick, Levi.
Yeah, I got those ones. I've actually got all of them on field. I've got Ashcroft at flex.
Yeah, Ashcroft at flex.
Nod, Sardis, Sheldrick, Nevitt in my midfield. Yeah, got those 4 there. Yeah. And then I've got Reed at D6 and Pal Pepper at F6.
Yeah. Okay.
I've got
7 or 8, mate.
Yeah, 7 or 8 seems to be fine.
Especially because of the flex, but yeah, 7 seemed to be the number being floated around by the content creators. Could the good early fixtures for Fremantle, Brisbane and Carlton potentially allow these teams to share or spread their CBAs more than they would in closer games? I'm going to say no for Fremantle because they're already missing Young anyway. So they're one banana down, who's a very important one. And they can't risk it at all. Like like Brisbane, you could potentially see a situation where that happens, but remember as much as they won the premiership, although they won the 4th or 5th best team last year from home and away, they had a really slow start. They don't want to risk the slow start. Freo and Carlton don't want to be in that situation where Carlton last game are like waiting to see if Freo lose. And Freo don't want to be in that position. So I feel like these teams are going to go all out early to get a great start to the season. I think it's an interesting point, Michael, but I don't think it's going to happen.
I agree. I absolutely agree with you there. Brisbane, I mean, we sort of know who the mids are there. Carlton have a few players that can run through there, but it seems that I still think Chera, if you're concerned about Chera maybe getting less CBAs as a result, I don't think that will be the case. I think Chera's their best ball user, that he was always going to have a lot of time in the midfield. Freo, I mean, they've got their best mix that so no one's going to be missing out of the relevant premiums that you want to select there. And with Brisbane, is that because you're asking for maybe more midfield time for Will Ashcroft? Is that what you're gauging? Because Dunkley and Neil are certainly going to be in there. They're not going to play any other position. So for all of our premiums, I don't think they're going to be negatively affected by the earlier starts. That's for sure.
And even if Walsh was to get up for round 1, let's just say, I think if Carlton weren't to have any injuries for the game, there'll be a point margin where they'll be happy to sub him off, which just has a better effect for those sort of Carlton midfielders because, I feel like they'll want to get game time into him. But, 3 of those games, if they're up by 10 goals halfway through the third quarter, Walsh, come to the bench, mate, you've done enough. Jackson only had 9 hit-outs, but he was moving. So he was moving awesome. He looks great. Looks like a man possessed. Looks like a man who's trying to get back to Melbourne. But he looks awesome. I love Jackson as a player. I love watching him.
He's very good.
Hey, Luke Jackson's manager. Get him to the Tigers, mate. The Tigers. Nate could be retiring soon. You can be our number 1 ruck. Don't shake your head. You're signing Draper, Hi, Swizz and Joe. Thoughts on Zorko and Neil? I don't really see the kitty affecting Dane's role. Yeah, mate, I've got both. I think they're awesome.
Yeah, I got Zorks. I don't have Neil, but I think Zorko, early run, off the charts, was taking the piss in the practice game, and he still scored ridiculously high. Kitty Coleman, he's just one of those guys who's always injury prone, unfortunately. Pushed out to round 5. Who knows if he even actually comes in at round 5? It will be, I think, underdone. They won't need to rush him back in. And Zorko said he's a defender and he's not playing anywhere else. So, they're excellent. And no early buy either now, which is ridiculously good.
Yes, 100%. Round 24, Suns, Bombers, both teams out of contention, have fan boycott, crowd of 4,000. What a joke. And especially because it's up there. No one will care. The AFL is trying to get their round 0 situation by taking the NRL on their heartland as they're leading to finals. And okay, we're going to pack it up. Watch it. The Suns are going to get every umpiring decision under the sun this year.
Yeah. Put
them in contention for that match.
So
just enough to put them in 9th, so they have to win to try to beat the Bombers to get into 8th. It's set up.
Exactly.
It's already planned. It's Kansas City all over again, guys.
All over again. And the funny thing is,
we're the same colors.
We're going to be moved out of opening rounds so that we can play in closing round.
The closing round. They're going to announce it. They're going to be like, closing round this year is coming to Queensland. Oh no. Oh, jeez. Could wrap this up soon, I think. Finlaces are only good if their ruck goes down. Yeah, I kind of agree, mate. In saying that, defensive, takes in intercept marks and stuff. I feel like in that backline role, I'd want him in the 200, early 200s. That's why I like Blight better, because realistically, all he is at 300K is a slightly cheaper version of SDK if he goes back in the backline.
Yes.
We're not picking SDK if he wants to go in the back. Yeah, because it's 60K cheaper. I would rather a guy who's 240K cheaper, who is going to see all the ball. If you're going to do it, it's got to be somebody like Blight, even maybe Logue, but it's got to be one of those sort of guys because their teams are rubbish. No Garcia in Swizz's forward line, but his argument is valid. Thank you, mate. Port have Peppa Pig in the leadership group, one of only 4. They rate him. They do, Jonas. So maybe Joe is onto something. Maybe I need to look more into that. That's fine. I can't bring myself to drop Garcia. No problems at all with that, mate. Joshy Hewitt, does Sink play in the midfield, you reckon, and affect Garcia? Or do you think he's going straight to the back line? Yeah, this is Sinclair, yeah.
Yeah.
See, this is the one and this is why, another reason why I really would have loved St Kilda in round 0, because I want to see where Sinclair lines up.
Yeah.
And we've got no knowledge of this at all because Sinclair has been injured, so he hasn't played anything. And that's another reason why maybe Garcia has fallen out of my side, because I have so many questions about St Kilda. And I probably need to hit up my boy Jakey, because he'll be at training probably every day this week and be like, "Oi, Jake, tell me what the hell's going on, mate," because
Exactly.
we need more clarification. Maybe I'll try to get Jakey on the show again and say, "Jake, what is going on at St Kilda land?"
Well done. Would be very good.
Yep. McGovern can score more points in the ambulance than 136k. Oh, Jonas, we love you, mate. I can't figure out Bose. The minus 12. So he's still in my team at the moment because it's easier to go down to somebody. And I feel like he can't, if he gets now, he can't play that bad again, can he? Surely.
Never.
But the fact
surely.
that he has shown that that is his flaw, that he can actually go minus 12.
It's a remarkable flaw.
To me, I'm like, he's in there because the great thing is I'm going to trade him for somebody. And all of a sudden I'm like, hey, I've got more cash. And that cash could mean I could upgrade something. I've got like 50k spare at the moment. So I was waiting to see if Riley Bice was named and he's not. So that does limit my opportunities. But so now it's kind of like I'm down to say O'Connell, or I move Patton back and get another rookie. But I probably have enough money to go Allen, flip Patton, and get, say, your pal Pepper Boy. I think I can actually do that. So I've left myself with some options there. Bo's there just as my placeholder at the moment, but I don't really like him too much in my team, but he's a warm body. Yeah. Oh, okay. So do you like Jeremy or Joe more? Fossil Sardis.
What can I do for you? Woody, what would you like me to do for you, mate? I have Hugo in my team, Woody. That should automatically mean you're on Team Joe. All right? You got to be Team Joe. It's got to be Elijah Sardis. Come on ball.
Now, you guys aren't privy to one of the group chats that we're in, the content creators. I was stirring. I was down at the Savaki shop, I think, down at Noble. And geez, I was fishing Big J big time. And I was like, this Foss guy's overrated. He's playing on the dead wing. He's not going to get near it. And he was getting more and more points. And then by the end of it, I was like, hey, Jez, have you heard of this guy Foss? And that, mate, he's a really good player. And you really should get him in, mate. You really need. Do you want me to come on your show and tell you about him? Because, mate, I can't believe you don't rate him. Jeez, I could just imagine how he was feeling. He would have been like cursing me.
You had him hook, line, and sinker. It was remarkable.
100%. Sardis more because he's the one playing the guts. Foss is playing more on the outside. Foss has got all the talent in the world. Let's not say that too loudly, but no, Foss is great. But yeah, if I had to choose between two, Sardis is slightly cheaper, better role. I'd go Sardis. Yeah. Jen, how are you?
Jen! Long time no see, Jen.
Long time. So thank you so much for jumping on. Send us a message. Love to hear from you again, Jen. Wooden Spoon, which two of Levi, Foss, Sardis, and Draper? I think we've answered that. Sardis is over Foss, and I'm not on this to pick at all. Maybe a downgrade. I'm just not on him. Potentially might not even play. I'm here. It's a setback, maybe with injury. So definitely not. Levi now without the bye, even with as Joe was saying, the issues like the slow preseason. If you had to choose two, it's Sardis and Levi. That's just a no-brainer. I think Draper was still in 30-odd% of teams. Maybe that's 30% of South Australians are playing. Maybe just Adelaide because the Port Adelaide supporters aren't going to choose him. So, Holmes, Sicily, or Wanganeen Malira, like that, definitely not Sicily. They are playing Sam Frost, which he can only play in defence. So that means Sicily is either going to play on the wing or midfield, or he's playing up forward. As much as Chris sent 17 messages earlier saying Sicily's going back, he is not going back. And now that Long don't have the bye, I'm on Holmes more than Wanganeen Malira, but I don't actually like any of them.
Correct. Just get Zorko.
They're I think they're all capped. I think Holmes and Wanganeen Malira are capped as 105 guys. It's not terrible, but they're guys I can just pick up later in the year for 20k more. Like big deal.
Exactly.
and they could have a bad game, get injured or something, and I just pick them up cheaper. Like,
Yeah,
cool.
I prefer.
The guys in the 400s have got way more value.
Yeah, and if you're going to go for a Geelong premium in the back line, I'd prefer Stewart over Holmes personally.
I'm going to skip Jonas's for one question because Trav, thank you so much, mate. I do really appreciate it. The love here. It's awesome. I do like you guys. And I know you guys do this for Abses. You do it for Joe and Jez. It's great. Like every little bit help. Like it's the money. It's like I actually couldn't care less so much about it, but every cent that like pretty well me and the boys get, it just invests stuff. So you guys would have remembered how bad my mic quality was. It's got better and better as time's gone on. Obviously the headphones, the light setup and stuff like that. Obviously myself and the other half do have bills and stuff, and we all have to pay. So she lets me do this as a hobby, and every cent that I get, every time you like and subscribe a video, even if you can play it, like seriously, you go and play our videos overnight and just leave it running while you're sleeping. It does help because that money we just put back into doing our podcasting stuff, and because we love doing it for you guys. And if it means I can get slightly better technology and shit like that, yeah, it's great. Apologies for swearing, but no, it's great. So I appreciate that. To actually answer your question, someone that could be handy at Baz's price is Lohman. Also expect Washcroft getting 50% CBAs. I go, Will Ashcroft. Yeah, like, who's Washcroft? Who's this guy? Washcroft. That's great. No, yeah, I'm going to say that to Ben now. Yeah, he's washed, mate.
He's Washcroft.
Handy at Baz's price is Lohman. They could get off to a good start for sure. Was he going to be about 380, 360 again? We need a Lions forward who's in like that 250 range. Even I looked up Rayner and he's in the 400s. It's just so yuck because they're not going to make that big cash price. The guys that are going to make cash is in that 200 to 280 range. We need to sort of find a player that's going to come out there. Chase Jones a couple of years ago had a 4-week go where he made a whole lot of money. Tex Walker, actually the Crows might be the one because Tex Walker did the similar. Remember when he came out at the start of the season, 6 weeks or something, and just went berserk. Harry Mackay did it last year. Hogan was the one last year that I talked about all preseason and then didn't back myself. And he came out and did exactly as we expected him to do. And then 60, 70, 80K plus those points you would have got, bang, you were flying. So there is options. I like the suggestion. Lohman could, but small forwards can go in and out of the games. It's more that key. Just need to kind of look through the matchups. It might be Port Adelaide might be actually a better matchup because the fact that there is no BZT to lock them down. So maybe a couple of their opponents, maybe it's like a Collingwood get just the right draw here. But then who we're talking about, Mason Cox or something like yuck. So there'll be somebody. There'll be somebody I have completely left off here, not thought about the right matchup. Like your boy Langford, but I don't know what I say he's priced, but I think they've got Port Adelaide. So all of a sudden he's not up against his old mate BZT. He's up against, maybe Finlayson's probably, against 2 meter Pete or whoever it is kind of situation.
I'm actually somebody. It's
usually a forward.
If we had BZT up against us, we'd score. He's the reverse Coleman medalist.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Do we lock? How do you feel about that, mate? Players leaving Essendon and just becoming actually solid citizens and stuff. It's just
BZT's. I've never minded BZT. It's just unfortunately we've played him on the number one key forward, and that's not his game. He is third best. He has to take the third option, and then he can help out. So don't mind him. Went off to play that role in a different team. Good for him. Back home, the one that really hurts out of everyone is Massimo. Having Massimo in the side right now would have been so much better for us. A good, beautiful left foot ball user kicking into what's going to be a mobile forward line this year. It fits the bill perfectly. That's the one that really sucks.
It's for us, VFL guys, Durham, Davidson, even Josh Dunkley played in Richmond's VFL team. Now, I know he was sort of different because he was father-son, but then the Swans didn't take him. But we could have potentially we had these guys sitting in our VFL, watching them first. We had opportunities to find ways to take it. Now, Essendon was lower than us on the ladder that week, could take Durham and stuff. But there was some word that Essendon was looking at that. We could have thrown a game to put ourselves ahead of Essendon because they were the only ones that are going to take him. Or we could have, you draft people early and stuff. It just,
yeah.
Oh, the players we've missed out on. It's annoying. It's just like,
Can't
do we
do
lock
much.
Ty Gallup at F8 as a slow burn if he's named over Day? There is a chance that they probably go 3 tools maybe anyway. It could be Henry Smith or anything. If it's just the 2 tools, I'm really interested as that slow burn at F8. I know, like, it's not going to take a lot. Like, what's their break even this year at that sort of really cheap price? We'll see. I think he's 113 off the top of my head. Either way, it's like 21 break even or 22 break even. So much of a muchness. For that, he only needs to take, if he gets on the end and kicks 2 goals, 2 marks, and they've got games there where, so Richmond, obviously, he's going to be up against Blight, or like the third tallest, whatever it is. So, kid versus kid. North Melbourne, slightly a little bit harder but still Charlie Compton's only in his second full kind of year. They've got the ability there where if they're feeding them enough, he could, and it only takes a couple of the Joe the Gooses over the top and he kicks 3 or 4 and when they get a run on and he gets that 80-point game and it's like, you beauty, we've got an F8 here. It's just going to tick along for us nicely. I'm actually quite big about him. I'm actually writing about him at the moment in an article for the Code Sport Herald Sun Boy. So actually he's kind of my sneaky dude that I was talking about.
Beautiful. What do you think about Aiden Johnson as a potential F8?
Yeah, Grimo messaged me about him today. He actually really likes him too. So that's not a bad one either. I like that idea because the D's are the same boat. They don't have that D forward. So, yeah, they're the ones you kind of look at. Jonas, how long is Noah Bolter out for? Did you see the video? Because this is live, I need to be careful what I say. There's been some videos I've done. I don't like editing. I like going live because I don't have to edit the videos. Like the video I put out this morning, I actually did it 2 days ago. And then I end up dropping Wi-Fi, all pulled out, couldn't save it. And I was going to just record the middle part and redo it. And Joe and I have gone through this because the first time Joe and I recorded this year, we had a massive Wi-Fi out and we had to do it again. It was just frustrating. So I prefer the live because, we have less issues with that. The second time I recorded, there was because I was just sort of more chilled. And it's like, oh no, I'll cut here and I'll edit this. It took me 2.5 hours to edit that video that I did. And you'll see clearly where I've done the edits. But there's some videos I've had people on who know, or have connections with Jamara this year. And I've said there was one that I did one and I probably edited out about 15 minutes of footage because I'm like, I can't talk about this on air and stuff. Like people were telling me certain stuff, potential the John Long incident, we don't really know or whatever. The Noah Bolter one, it's a weird situation for me because I do have family up in the area and I have seen the video, but I do know a little bit more about what may have taken place. It's with the courts. I'm just leaving this alone at that. And I know you've said Noah Belter. There's so much of this. So personally, for me, I'm just not touching this at that. But yeah, all we know now, it's 4 weeks. It's with the courts. So normally I would I want to just comment on this, but it's just hard. It'll get back or stuff like that. And and then it happened, for example, in a group chat we have. So again, we have a lot of group chats going, a lot of different content creators. One of our mates is a good mate of a player that plays in AFL. It's like best mates with a player with AFL. So he gets us this inside knowledge of it's a Melbourne club, everything that's pretty well going down there. And this is no different. It'd be like Joe playing for Essendon. Joe and I catch out because we're really close mates. Joe sits there and tells me what's going on. And then not for me to come on the podcast or not for me to start texting the other boys and go, hey, this is what's happening. Well, this guy does text us and is like, yeah, what a great mate. Starts texting us what's going on. And then he posted something in one of our group chats. And one of the other content creators may or may have not been part of my show, then turned around and texted it to somebody else. And that content creator then shared it on social media. And then that player was literally messaging our mate going, did you seriously share this with people? And he's like, yeah, I kind of did. I shared this with a couple of people I thought I trusted. So it's an interesting one. It's great because we obviously, when we can share stuff, we let you guys know from a Supercoach perspective. But there's stuff and it was great when we had Camera on his first ever interview. And
that was so good.
It was great. Camera probably said stuff because he wasn't media trained at the time.
Correct.
And he was just talking to us about, oh yeah, this player's playing this position, this player's doing this. This is how it was setting up. And it's like, yeah. And then he was like, probably should have not been on the show saying stuff like that. So it's an interesting one, but just a bit of an insight, guys, how lucky we are because realistically, who are Joe and I in the day? Yes, we own this mic and we get on, we talk and stuff, and we do this because we love doing it with you guys, and you make the show with it. But at the end of the day, we're like nothing to the footballs, but you meet people who know people and stuff, and it's just part of the world that we live in, which is great. So get to find out all this stuff, and then what we can share, we share.
Exactly.
Michelini is closing on a return. Do you think he's best 22? And if so, is he another one that gets added to the midfield mix or return to defense? I think he's actually looked all right in the midfield, but just because they've added Peatling, Matt Crouch is still there. Michelini's playing back. I feel like he's playing back line, but then they're sitting Rory Laird down there. They've already got Mitchy Hinge. He's definitely best 22. Just good question where he fits in. That's a great question. I feel like I've got him in a keeper league. I might have to freaking get rid of him. Try to trade with someone.
I'll just take Malira's spot because Malira's always got soft tissue injuries.
Jeez, people are hot on Malira. I don't know why. He'll last 3 games. Yes, to answer your question, I think he's best 22, but he's not getting in that midfield. I don't even know where he comes on. He could be a sub. It's now giving me vibes of our guy James Leake, because he's kind of got that body where Michelini could come on and replace anybody. Poor guy, because he's actually a better footballer than that.
Yeah, he is.
Joe still boycotting McKercher. Ask Big J.
He killed me last year.
Jen, thoughts on Matt Flynn? Is it worth bringing him in? We've talked about this. I know you've got here late, Jen, to absolute depth. But yes, Flynn as flex, not as I personally think not as R2. I don't feel like that's worth the risk at the moment. But flex, or as long as you could have him at R2, but then you've got your premium ruck at flex. Like, what difference does it make? Yes. As long as if I feel like you need 3 rucks for that. But yeah, no problems at all with the pick. I'm not on it at the moment. A few people have been asking me why not and stuff. Maybe I can potentially move things around and get there, but I would rather see it than go there at the start. Yeah, starters, it is awesome. Tiki is F7. Sauce. Oh, jeez. Okay. How many rookies you running in midfield? 3 or 4? I am 3 on field. Joe is on 4, and that's the difference right now because of how our teams are set up. I think Bo Allen's kicking efficiency was 0%. Only one of his 6 disposals was successful. 6 cleans, I think, to it. He can't possibly ever go that bad again. First game, maybe. First game nerves in front of the home crowd. Maybe he's probably got friends and family there because it was at home. He's a hometown boy. It might have just the moment got to him. So I think I'll cut him some slack because people are like, how can you do that against Norfolk? It's a kid in his first game. Let's just give him a bit of slack. Stuff like that. Lara Croft over those rookies. Sheasel, Zorko, Clark, Roberts, Perryman, and 1 on-field rookie. That's my team. I shouldn't say that. Go watch my video. No, but that's my team. I think most people in this one have watched my team. Jaden Short or Houston, who's the better pick to have in the team? I can only have one. Well, Jen, you're a Collingwood supporter, but Joe?
Jaden Short.
Jaden Short, yeah. I think, price-wise, probably. I wouldn't mind owning Houston at some point. I think he could still be top 6 again.
I mean, what did Uze come out and say that they're going to play
chip around
possession style football with no Rioli? It's just like, bro, I didn't want to start short, but he's making me start short. If you're telling me that sort of crap, I have to start short now.
Grimo messaged me back straight away, and he was like, from Supercoach, we're going to have to put, because we've been big on not starting short, because this is my whole thing. We're going to, who cares we're losing by big margins? Players are going to play the footy that we want to play going forward. And they're going to get short. He's going to try to kick it up the ground. Yes, we're not, they might find a clunker mark. He might kick it over 50 meters, so it still counts. But, we're going to see that. And then he comes out and says, we're going to play boring possession football and chip it around. And I couldn't be any more heartbroken about I've gone from I'm so excited to go round 1 against the Blues. I don't care. They're going to smash us, but I'm going to get to see some great, the youngsters play some, their flair that they're going to come in. And I've all gone to, great. We're going to chip it around and we're going to see Ben Miller take 15 marks.
Yep. Yep.
So short, but Jen, unless you really want your hometown boy, your boy that that's playing for the Pies now, but short's cheaper at least. You can probably get Houston at the same price at some other point. Bailey Humphrey is a pod. he's going earlier in drafts than what I thought he would. The talk is he's getting midfield time, while Flanders is still going to work his way back. Yeah, there's some potential. I don't know if I really like the price, but it's he's coming mentioned a little bit here. Any thoughts about that, mate?
I mean, it's not even just that. It's also the fact that Tuke Miller's had his injury interrupted preseason as well. He's a hard-nosed player, and we know Dimmer likes those types of players. You know, that grunt, willing to absorb contacts, look for it, not shy away from it. He loves the hard-nosed type players. So they've obviously added Lombard, who is great at hitting the scoreboard. So that if he was to move higher up the ground to be more in the midfield, doesn't take away from their scoring avenues. So I can understand the rationale behind it, but I just don't have faith in him, I suppose, as a player just yet. Not entirely sure what his work ethic is like. He's very unproven. Early buy for Gold Coast as well. I think on balance, I think there are other options that we can go. To be honest, at instead of paying up for him.
270 for slightly cheaper. But the one thing I'll say, after he had that -3 game against the Tigers a couple of years ago, he had the 64, then he went 117, 101, 90, 99. And in the space of 4 weeks, he made 220K.
Yeah.
So that question earlier about somebody who can get on a run for 4 weeks, I would prefer of knowing that Flanders and Tuke wouldn't be there. If they were missing and you definitely knew he was the third guy, that's the sort of move you make to go, hey, we've found one here that can, propel our early season. But because the talk is that they're going to be back and everything like that, even in the practice match, he only had the 14 touches, 54. If that practice match he scored a ton and he was in there and he was load of CBAs and everything like that, sure. But I think there could be a period in the time if they get an injury. It might be next year. If he only sort of plods around half forward, gets some CBAs, and if, God forbid, for the Suns, Matt Rowell left, let's explore that again. Is Essendon going to win a final this year? Oh, that's great, Jen.
Look, if we break the streak, Jen, this year, I will streak. I'll just say that.
Yeah. It's hard to discuss some things you hear. That's right. It's also you can't discuss everything or whatever. And remember, gossip. Yeah, exactly. So, and that's the thing. Some things are gossip. Some things are actual. I know it's fact, just because some people in their roles and stuff. But it's like everybody. You talk about your job and stuff. Like I don't obviously talk about my job. Joe doesn't talk about his job, stuff like here. But like you could. And then it gets back to your employers. Like, why did you mention that and stuff? You just don't. Max won't be getting mid-time. Oh, Mick, yeah, he won't. We'll talk about that. Bailey Humphrey, he's a dumpster dusty. Oh, that's funny. Hoping Hasty gets a good run in the team as he might assist us with a defensive rookie at round 6. Yeah, and that's the hope. He and Boxshell all depends on where Sinclair plays. And this is another reason why I said St Kilda needed to be the round 0 team. As much as I hate round 0, they were the obvious round 0 team for us because we could have seen it. And Hasty, it's like he's been running off that half-back flank. But if Sinclair goes back there, he's out. But if he goes to the midfield, then Boxshell's probably out. They could both be out. They both could be in.
Correct.
I think Travalia is the one that's actually going to be the sub. They've kind of been training him this preseason to be an impact player, come on and work for 20 minutes, half an hour. So that's where I think he fits in.
I don't know. I was asking, Roscoe from Third Manor, the sword
came on the other day, actually. He talked about
him on the other day. He reckons Hasty could keep his spot in the side, and that if Sinclair comes back, it's likely O'Connell who gets dropped. So, if Roscoe reckons that Hasty can keep his spot in the side, then I'm willing to roll that dice there, and I guess we'll see next week.
Yeah, I had him in the other day. I changed it, but I need to see it. But I don't mind it. Hasty's the one I did mention him in the pod. I did spend a little bit of time talking about him because I don't mind it. Ashcroft or Foss in the flex, realistically, is Ashcroft a sub risk? Like, realistically, any player's a sub risk.
Correct.
The moment you walk out there, you're a sub risk because it depends on what the situation of the game. Ashcroft, you're thinking against those lower teams. You're new to footy, they're going to give you every opportunity. Unless they're worried about some sort of niggle or anything like that, then it's a different story. So on any given week, we don't know when players, you get no different. Anybody goes to the gym, anybody goes for a jog, whatever. Some days you jog around with a dog and you feel fine. Other days you go, oh my God, I landed a bit weirdly or something happened. And all of a sudden you come in with a little bit of a niggle and we probably don't go to the gym the next day. We sit on the couch and eat a donut while we sit here and watch us guys. But for them, maybe that, they'll take something and get through the game, but depending on them, how the game eventuates, they might need to be subbed off. So we don't know which players will be in that situation. The hope is if Levi plays 75% game time, does he do enough to just continue to tick over his score? That's so. If I'm like Ashcroft in the flex, it doesn't really matter anyway because it's best 18 for a lot of those games. Round one's a little bit different, but for round 2, 3, and 4, it makes no difference at all. But maybe round 1, just put Foss in there, and then if that's your decision, or put somebody else completely else in it. Just put Lockie Neal in the flex. Like, it makes no difference. They're going to cover your boy. There's not like anyone else is going to outscore him. It's not like if you got a situation where Lockie Neal's in your flex and the other 18 players outscore him, well, you're having a great week, unless they've all been concussed off for a 0.
Correct.
So, it's fine. Okay, we've got about 4 more, and that's good because we've been here for it's like the other half. Oh, we'll do an hour, and then that's like Francis Evans. So Nick, is this Big J's?
No, he means Logan Evans. He means Logan Evans.
Logan Evans. Yeah.
He follows up with a follow-up.
Is this Big J's fake account here and stuff like that?
No,
I was everywhere in the practice game, possible breakout season. Like, we're trying to wait to see. I think there's just too many cooks in the kitchen at Port. We don't know. Sin, Farrell, Evans. I think it's going to be halfback by committee.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not touching anybody there.
No, I've gone cold on all the Port backmen. Every time Humphrey gets the ball, he just bombs it. Yeah, it's a Humphrey. So we've talked about that. That's good. Price is the same as Garcia for Humphreys. So I'd prefer Garcia anyway. Sorry, wrong Evans. Yep, Logan Evans. Yep. So that's what we think. It's just Port Adelaide by committee. Like, he could, and again, he could be a guy that jumps up and makes. It wouldn't be surprised me if he makes 100K, 120K and stuff like that. Wouldn't surprise me in the world. It's not awful. I just think there's too many. Like, on any given week, I think one of those Port Adelaide defenders is going to pop off. And we didn't even talk about Miles Bergman too. No. And then they've got a guy by Burgoyne who plays more wing and bid, but he can go back there. So many players at Port. And the other part about Port too, we haven't mentioned, they've kind of got a new coach. They don't, but they do.
Yes.
So I don't know who's pulling what reins. If Josh Carr is saying this is the guy I want going forward, how that's going to work. Perryman, D5, too deep in defense. No, that is exactly my defense. I think that's fine just because of the lack of rookies. No Carl Amon special pick this year, mate.
No traps in my team this year. My team, no traps. And that's been my problem every year. Every year I get sucked into 1 or maybe 2 trap selection, like Tanner Bruin, for example. It's not happening this year. Every single one of my picks is going to be a winner. You watch.
Winner, absolutely. Joe's winning Supercoach this year.
Just give it to me.
Give it to him now. It'd be amazing. And we'll finish off with you, Josh. Thank you to everybody who's jumped on and asked questions. It's awesome. Really enjoyed it. Do we trust Davidson on field, or is his score going to yo-yo? Well, there's chances yo, but he just had a lazy 29 touches the other day against the Hawks.
Lazy.
Now, do I expect that? Like, he did butcher the ball. But I think he's now no McRae. We know he's probably going to be locked into that wing half forward role. He should be good enough as a mature age guy to probably, at worst, get maybe a 50 be his floor. I feel like he's just going to plod along, get his 50 to 70, and then he might have a spike game. But I don't really see. He's the one I'm not really fearful that he's going to go 20 because I just think he's good enough to find the ball on any given week.
He's such a classic. Like that. I still occasionally get flashbacks out of nowhere of that sidestep and then check side goal that he did in the practice game. It was brilliant. It was so beautiful. He's such a classy player. Yeah, he's Don't worry about him. You'll be fine.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank Josh, Jonas, Sean, who was just messaging you there. Everybody that's posted a comment. Awesome. Just because we're not here doing the live doesn't mean you can't comment on our YouTube videos. Joe's got videos going out. I've got a ton of videos and stuff. Just leave comments in there. Hit us up, DM, whatever. You know, we know it's a massive week. Don't be too upset if we don't get back to you straight away. I always try it. And sometimes my answers are pretty short because I do have a lot of people message me, but feel free, hit us up. We're on X. Joe, how do the people find you?
Yeah, Centre Bounce YouTube channel. You can hit us up on Twitter at bounce_center or at myself at chabby_Joe. And yeah, happy to reach out and help out. And of course, you guys know where Swizz is at Swizz26 and Supercoach Insider. We're all over it, guys.
All over it. Beautiful. Thank you so much. And as I said, check out all those other great things that Joe's doing. Check out my latest video, especially the one that I did with the AFL Fans Association, guys. That's the big one because as fans, you know, we control this game and we want to make it better. So yeah, so I don't have to come on here and gripe about the match. Swizz wishes he was 26. How do you not know that I'm 26, mate?
He was born in 1926. That's what I'm just kidding.
I love it. I love it. I'm actually not that old. I just love it.
No.
No, it's great. No, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. We'll talk soon. Bye.